Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Howdy.
Sup, y'all?
Hi.
Surprise.
I'm Stephanie. Thanks for coming. Steph,
Mhm.
did you listen to the?
I have not had a chance to listen to it yet. However, I've heard about your antics, and I shall be reviewing. HR shall be reviewing them.
Just listen to the
Yeah.
last couple of minutes. That'll be enough.
I know.
Yeah. You'll want to turn off after that.
Well, it's the end of the show. So
Yes, true.
I thought we did a really nice impression of you,
I'm sure you did. I'm sure
especially
you did.
Nick.
No doubt.
Nick's was the best.
I think I just heard his
Well,
impression.
Yeah, you did.
I actually hurt myself doing that.
That's what you get.
I got sore throat.
Oh, Lord.
Hello.
Strained my tonsils.
Okay, let's do a check here.
WAPG.
Holy moly, that's loud in my ears.
Sounds good here.
Okay, let me turn it down a little bit in my.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
So that's all right.
That was
Yeah.
quiet there at the end there.
I think we need to note that it's only 4:31 and we're all about ready to go.
Yeah, very
That's
cool.
amazing.
Yes, it is. Oh, let's start our recording devices.
Mine's going.
Excellent. What in the world happened to my screen? Hey. No wonder I'm having problems.
What?
Steph's sound is just like a menagerie of barking
It's the
and
wildlife.
birds and people screaming.
The wildlife of South Carolina. People screaming.
Well, maybe that's from somebody else.
I didn't hear anyone screaming.
Well, maybe not screaming.
I hear loud vehicles.
You might be hearing some barks from my end, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Okay. Ready.
Ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
I was smack on.
Wow.
Absolutely
was.
perfect.
I was late on purpose.
Oh, thank you. Then I don't
That
even
makes
know
just
why we do
life
it.
real easy.
Doesn't it?
What's the point?
I was trying to go for the time delay.
That's not helpful at all, Dana. I don't know what you think you're doing, but that does not. It really isn't helpful.
Showing you some love.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's do this thing. Let me get my script up.
Can mute my birds over here.
Mute the birds. Mute the birds. I know it's late for you,
Great
Nick. We'll get it out of the way.
giant.
We'll get this thing out of the way. Make it as painless as we can.
That'll be the day.
See you guys.
Oh, there we go. All right, here we go.
WAPG. It's the airline pilot guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 361.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 572 in the Renaissance Hotel in Cleveland, Ohio. Today's show was recorded on the 6th of February, 2019.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy. Put your light and he's flying by. With the airline pilot guy.
In today's episode, the wreckage of a Piper Malibu is found in the English Channel. A drunk passenger ordered to pay WestJet Airlines more than $21,000 for fuel reimbursement. More news, your feedback, and no plane tale this week, but an interview entitled The Hardest Job in the Air Force. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seatbacks in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 361 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we talk about aviation news and answer your feedback each and every week. And joining me from her lakeside studio in South Carolina, She's a doctor, a skydiver, a marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. Good to see you. It's my noisy lakeside studio, apparently, today. It's a beautiful day here in South Carolina, so the windows are open to let some fresh air in. So if you're listening to the show today and hear some birds chirping in the background and other such wildlife, it's my fault.
We like wildlife here at the APG, so welcome. And also joining us from across the pond in his recording studio in the English countryside, professional photographer, former RAF, RAAF fighter pilot, only 2 A's that time. Current captain for an international airline based in London, it's Captain Nick.
Well, hi there, Jeff. Great to be back on the show again. Not too sure about my internet this week. Just have to see how that goes. Anyway, got lots to say. Going to be a good show, I'm sure.
Okay, you're all Skypulated. Let's hope it all evens out. And also joining us from his stately southern mansion in Smyrna, Georgia, barbecue master, motorcycle rider, pontoon boat skipper, underwater photographer, and captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier, Captain Dana.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I realize that I'm on the wrong show this evening, so I'm going to have to leave because we're going to be a sports show tonight, right? No, it isn't. But it's going to be a great show.
I think you are on the wrong show. So, hey, it was good seeing you, Dana. Have a great all right. Good to see you. I have a feeling we will talk a little bit about a sporting event.
We will indeed.
At
Very
once or twice.
I'll keep it to a minimum, though. I promise.
Well, I mean, what's really what is there to say other than the complete dominance of the New England Patriots at the Super Bowl? Let's go ahead and talk about it.
It wasn't a complete dominance, actually, but what
Really?
it was a fantastic game, even though there are a lot of naysayers out there, because what it was is a great chess game of great coaching between two teams that performed I wouldn't say flawlessly, but very well defensively. So those people out there that wanted to see a high scoring game like there was last year, back and forth to both end zones and everybody's, throwing hundreds of touchdowns and running lots of yards, it was kind of a slow game, kind of like watching, I would have to say, like football for the rest of the world, soccer, where it's a low scoring game, but it was a defense game that was well executed by both sides. So I enjoyed that part of it. But yes, I did get to go. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So we talked about that last week, that you were able to snag a couple of tickets and you made it to the game itself. So what was it like being at a Super Bowl?
Well, first off, those that can't see it, I have a picture of the catalog here, Super Bowl catalog, which cost me only $20. It's the entire magazine. What was it like? I have really one word to describe it: euphoric. It was really just an amazing experience. The whole weekend, the atmosphere, the energy, the amount of people that came down from the New England area or New England fans. It was just, from what I heard, as a matter of fact, today, over 1 million people showed up for the parade yesterday in Boston, which just is a testament how popular the team is, especially back home. But being at Super Bowl, nothing like it. It was just amazing to sit there in the energy that was in the stadium, to see two great teams going at it, the two best teams in the NFL, apparently, although we do have some controversy out there as to a few missed calls or things that happened 2 weeks prior. In the end, it's the two teams that made it to the finals. And I know a lot of people are sick of tired of hearing about the Patriots that live here in the United States. But it truly was a blessing to see Tom Brady not playing his best game, certainly. But I think some of that had to do with the fact that the defense on the Rams' part was so well executed, see likely some of these people you're not going to know, but Julian Edelman, he played a fantastic game, won the MVP for the team. He was he's one of our wide receivers, and then possibly the last game to see Rob Gronkowski, which is he's our tight end that was very famous for making a lot of great and tough catches and a lot of great runs throughout the years. So he's been around with us for a long time. So it might have been his last game. So just to be there to witness that all in person was just amazing. I've been watching the Super Bowl back on my TV. I recorded the game and saw, one of the most famous things the Super Bowl is known for is their commercials. And I have to admit that the commercials were not very good this year, other than the one commercial they have for the NFL. So as far as Nick watching the Soup Bowl that he did, which talk about it, I'm sure, in a few minutes, wasn't overly exciting and too entertaining for a lot of the folks because it wasn't a shootout. But for true fans like myself, it was, the game was really close for most of the game, so it easily could have gone to either team, and I fully expected the second half to be a blowout, but it didn't. So great experience.
So apparently the New England fans are very energetic at the Super Bowl itself. I was waiting for the train and riding on the train, talking with a couple of fans that had come out from Los Angeles, and he said they were practically accosted by New England fans and like getting in their face. We're gonna kill you. I said, I don't think they're all like that, but probably most.
No, we're not that bad.
So they weren't impressed at all. But you know what? I think the reason the Patriots won this game is because of karma, and not good karma for the Pats, but bad karma for the Los Angeles Rams because of the game against the Saints. It wasn't going to happen for them.
Could
sure?
be.
I just thought the Rams fell asleep and the Patriots must have drunk more coffee or something.
No, I mean, you could say that, I guess, Nick, but it was just a very good executed defensive game. So I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot more because this is an aviation podcast, so I'm not going to drone on about it. I think the most rewarding thing for me, other than obviously being at the Super Bowl, at the end of the Super Bowl, was watching the president of the league have to present the New England Patriots bought Robert Kraft the trophy, and the entire stadium was booing so loud when he was making his announcement, because he is probably one of the most disliked people in Patriots Nation. So when he was Roger Goodell was making that presentation, nobody could hear him, and then just to see that, be there, witness it, that was amazing to me. So enough.
All right.
I'm going to stop because I truly could take up this whole entire show.
Well, let's don't do that, Dave.
I'm not going to.
Okay.
I'm going to stop. I did fly last week. Flew 6 straight days. It turned out to be relatively uneventful, and had a great. Well, you'll talk about that too, Jeff. So I'm stopping.
Okay. Well, Nick, what did you think of the soup or bowl?
I thought it was half empty, or perhaps it was half full. I'm not sure. Actually, I used to watch a lot of American football when it used to be televised regularly, and I got to know enough about the game so I can follow a match without really understanding exactly what's going on, but most of it. And it was great. But I'd tell the truth that because there wasn't a great deal happening in the first 3 quarters, I was chatting away to a couple of listeners, 3 in fact, because we were having a little meetup in a bar not far from the hotel, because I'd flown over to New York, and we had Tanya, the lovely Tanya, and Philip was there, her other half, and for a little while, and then he had to drift off. But Scott organized it, and also Ryan pitched up, well, actually, no, sorry, Ryan didn't, but Dave did. He was an unexpected guy there. He's a fellow A330 first officer, but one from across your side of the ocean. And I've got a little audio from that, if it's around.
Let's play that right now, shall we? Oh, hang on. I got to play it on this one. Sorry. Nothing to see here. literally.
Well, hi there, Jeff. It's Captain Nick here, and we're in the bar in Porter Authority. No, that's not right. The Beer Authority in New York, and we're in the middle of the match here. We're staring intently at the television, hoping we will see Dana. But despite his magnificent size, we've not been able to spot him in the crowd yet. However, we will keep looking. Anyway, we're having a great night. I've got Tanya here. Tanya, say hello to the APG crew.
Hello, APG crew and APG wonderful listeners. Just wanted to say hi. I am feeling very, very fortunate because somehow I'm able to attend a lot of these meetups, and it's fantastic. I've just been having a nice conversation with the wonderful Captain Nick and making the acquaintance of Scott and Dave, who are just lovely, and my man Philip, who sadly had to go, but he sends his regards to all of the APGers. And this is just a wonderful time. You know, we're watching the Super Bowl, we're having a little, a few beverages and a good chat, and this is fantastic.
The adult beverages help. Now, got two guys here who I haven't met before. Now, they're brilliant because they both are pilots. They're both airline pilots. And certainly Dave flies one of the nicest airplanes that he's going. Dave, introduce yourself and tell us what you get up to.
Hey, this is Dave. I'm a 330 FO for Acme. In the middle of a 6-day trip here in New York. Just joined some good conversation, pretty good beer, and watching some football. And just like to say, go Rams. Sorry, Dana.
You're going to make him cry. What do you predict to be the result of tonight's match?
Well, sadly, I think that the Patriots will win, but I'm still holding out some hope for the Rams. I'd like to see the underdogs win tonight.
Now, it's unusual for me to meet an American pilot who is such an avid Airbus fan. That's true, yeah?
It is true. It's the only big airliner that I've flown is the Airbus, the 320 and the 330. So I can't say that I have a real great view of them, but I really do enjoy the Airbus, and it's so far the favorite airplane that I've flown. So I love it.
You know, you're not allowed to say things like that. You're not allowed to put a caveat on it. You love it or hate it. It's like Marmite. You love it or hate it. Anyway, it's great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming over. And you're off to Paris tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes, off to Paris tomorrow, and then back to Detroit, where I'm based on Wednesday, which is about 3 days from right now. So looking forward to getting home, but also looking forward to seeing Paris again.
Brilliant. Well, I wish you a very safe flight. Now, here's the man that set this meetup up. This is Scott. And he's got a wee story to tell because he is one of those lucky chaps that has just completed all his training and he's now flying on the line and like a real pilot, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. I just finished up with IOE after going through the extensive training required of any airline pilot in the United States. And it's nice to just relax and do my job and fly the airplane and go on different routes, and I'm having a great time.
It's great not to be under the watchful eye of those training pilots anymore.
Yeah, a little bit. But I will say it is nice knowing that should the absolute worst happen, I've already been through the worst in training, and I feel pretty confident I can handle it.
Excellent. Now, you're flying the Embraer.
Yeah, I fly the Embraer 170 and 175, also known as the E-Jet family of aircraft. And it's a great airplane. I really do believe they struck a great balance between automation and pilot control and flyability. I could go on forever about how much I love this airplane.
Yeah, you really have been singing its praise, and it's so nice to hear a pilot that's so proud of his equipment.
Well, that's me. And if it weren't for the fact that I was so distracted by the Rams-Patriots game and so on edge about it, I could go on for a lot longer.
Excellent. Right then. Well, thank you very much indeed, Scott. I'm going to wish you well and hand it back to Jeff in the studio. Bye.
Well, thank you for throwing it back at me. It sounds like you guys had a great time.
Magnificent size.
Excuse me.
Magnificent size.
Uh-oh. You thought you were going to get away with that, Nick?
Magnificent size.
That was the adult beverages speaking, perhaps.
Wow. I'm not that big of a guy.
He was,
Well,
he was talking about
you
your
keep
equipment.
complaining you can't get your shoulders into the average upper class seat. So I don't know,
that is
you're
true.
That's very
you're
true.
pretty
actually.
magnificent. Yeah. So,
But
give me credit.
I did go on a 330 sim this week, and I sat in it because I want to see how I fit, and I do fit in that.
Oh, there you go.
seat.
Oh,
Maybe that's in your future then.
Oh,
Huh?
Mm.
Dave certainly enjoys flying it very much indeed. So I think, yeah, he was a man who knows his stuff. So it was a pleasure meeting him and the other folk, Tanya, of course, and Scott for setting it up. That's brilliant. And anyway, we enjoyed some nachos, drank lots of IPA, occasionally glanced at the telly, but I had to disappear at the, just as the fourth quarter started because I was just dying. When I got back to my room, I did flick the telly back on just as I prepared to go to sleep, and I managed to see all the action in the 90 seconds that had occurred before the end of the game. So I thought that was great. Good timing.
Excellent. So, Steph.
Sorry, just one other thing. We were talking about meetups.
Okay.
Oh, damn. Okay.
No.
My next trip, Boston, day after tomorrow. So what day is that? That's going to be the 6th. Tomorrow's the 7th. It's going to be the 8th. Is that right?
That's Friday,
surely.
the 8th. Yes.
Let me just check. I might have got the date.
You should go to the APG calendar, community calendar, and it's probably on that.
Well, it probably is. Actually, this is a lot easier. No, it is Friday the 8th. We seem to have this on the wrong date. Okay, I must have put it in on the calendar on the wrong date. Damn. Anyway, look, I'm going to be in Boston, and we had organised a meetup there, and it's probably going to have to change day. So I'll have to contact, yes, the guy who set this up, and I'm just trying to see exactly who. Oh no. It's the 8th on the APG calendar? Okay, well, it is the 8th then. All right. Anyway, meetup on the 8th at the Five Horses Tavern at 8:30 in Boston. Sorry if that sounds a bit confusing, but for some reason it says your APG meetup February the 9th, but it's not. It's on the 8th. Oh, I tell you why. It's because I entered it there and it switched time zones and it's just flipped over onto from Eastern time to UK time. So UK time will actually be 1:30 in the morning, which is what it says in my calendar the next day, which is really confusing. So if you're confused, don't be surprised. I'm confused too. On the 8th at 8:30 in the evening in Boston, at the Five Horses Tavern. I'll be there. And who else is going to be there? Someone else is going to be there. Oh, damn. Why can't I remember these things? Help me, somebody.
You're getting old.
We can't
Well,
help you with
I've
this
got
thing.
old, mate.
We're just going to let you continue to dig your hole here.
Drown in my own. Yeah, I'm drowning my own messing up. Right,
Max, you can appreciate this. There's going to be a lot of post editing.
Yeah. Okay. Damn. The fine gentleman who said he'd come and see me, I'll sort it out. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, I hope you have a good time.
I hope people know when they're supposed to meet you and where they're supposed to meet you.
Yeah,
on which day.
look, it's on the 8th. On the 8th, it's going to be about 8:30 because I don't land till quite late into Boston, around 7 o'clock. So I'm going to have to try and dash from the airport into the hotel, get changed, and then walk about 7 blocks to this bar and walk in and go, who's the bloke whose name I can't remember?
Just hope they recognize you.
That's what I always do. I just assume the people are going to recognize me and say, "Hey, Captain Jeff." Oh, yeah.
Well, you see, we've got it in the Boston meetup. Please RSV with Slack with meetup. Oh, there's no name there. Why isn't there a name there? Jeff.
So while Nick sorts this out and tries to figure out what day he's meeting of the people possibly and with who
we
they
got that part.
Can I
Yes,
can I
Steph,
jump in with meetup information at least? Or
please.
then maybe Nick will figure his stuff out and we can have just this meetup segment. So speaking of meetups, and actually Nick brings up a good point because I probably need to check the time that I put in on the calendar because it's not going to be in the time zone that I'm currently in. Next Wednesday, a week from today, the 13th of February, if you are in the Salt Lake City area, we're going to be having a meetup at about 5 o'clock in the evening at the Wasatch Brew Pub in Sugar House. That's the one on 21st South and Highland Drive, more or less.
Sugar House?
Yes, it's a neighborhood of Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay. I've been to the that
The one in
brewery.
Park City?
No, never mind.
I've been to that
One in
exact
Salt
one.
Lake City downtown.
Yes. But it's a convenient location for me, and seems like the time's going to work out for at least a couple of us. At least 2 folks will be there. I think Brian and Nathan have said that they plan to make it. So if you are around and available Wednesday afternoon, 5 to 7-ish, I do have to be out of there around 7:30 to head up to Park City for conferencing. But
That's mountain time, right?
Mountain time, yes, not Eastern Standard Time. So if you're looking if you're looking in the calendar and it says it starts at 7 p.m., that's probably because I entered it, or it starts at, sorry, wrong way around. If it says it starts at 3 p.m., that's not true. It starts at 5 p.m. and I will try to fix that and make sure it's on the correct time zone in the APG calendar because it is local time, Mountain Standard Time.
Yeah, it does get confusing with the Google
Doesn't it?
Calendar because it changes.
You think
depending
you've
what
got
time zone.
problems?
Yeah.
Doug Steinfeld. Doug Steinfeld.
Doug
He's-
Steinfeld.
Yeah, you go. Doug is the guy that got in touch and said, "Oh, you're going to be in Boston. Let's get together for a beer." So at least Doug's going to be there. So
Okay.
thank you, Doug. And I apologize enormously for momentarily forgetting your name.
I'm sure he'll forgive you.
Probably not going to pitch up now. He's so offended.
You're on your
He's
own.
like, this
now.
guy doesn't know what he's
Yeah.
doing. Heck with
Yeah,
him.
well, I usually am.
Well, hey, all of your meetups, I'll
Mhm.
raise you one.
Okay.
Yeah. We had an Alpharetta, Georgia, Atlanta APG meetup, because we had somebody from out of town visiting us in the Atlanta area. His name, we're not really sure. Robert, Richard, Dick, Hamish, Fairbairn was in town and visiting his grandmother up in Cumming, Georgia. And so we got together, a bunch of us, over at the Loyal Q and Brew, and I recorded a little something. So let's listen to that.
That's a good one. I like that.
Hey, we are at the Loyal Q and Brew in Alpharetta, Georgia, at the Atlanta APG meetup on the 1st of February, 2019. We're going to start with this gentleman here. We know him as Ray, my neighbor in Alpharetta. And would you like to say something to the community?
Yeah. Hey, folks. Well, Jeff's managed to get a second time an Alpharetta meetup, which is pretty cool for me. And we've had a good evening here. Some folk arrived a little bit later than the rest of us, but that's okay. It's turned out to be great. So I'll pass you on to Rob now. Hey, Rob.
Hey, this is Robert Hamish McDick Haggis, and that's probably about all I should say based on the looks I'm getting right now. But despite all efforts from the airlines to the contrary and a nice customer service person helping me out and Acme coming to the rescue, I did eventually get here to have some absolutely delicious barbecue with some great people. So thanks for picking me up, Jeff.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
Yes, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do the censoring in post. And now the next contestant here, Harris.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm Harris from East Cobb, and I just want to say, Jeff, thank you for having this community. I've only been listening for half a year or so. I've been to 2 of these meetups, and for any of you out there that have been on the fence about meeting one of the crew when they're out and about, I highly recommend it. I mean, Jeff, Dana are fantastic people, but everybody else that comes just really is the icing on the cake.
Even better than the crew, I'd say. Thanks, Harris. This is Chris Cochran.
Hey, everybody. This is Chris from Decatur. Just want to having a good conversation here with APGers. Want to thank Jeff and Dana for putting this together, and looking forward to the next meetup here in Atlanta.
Me too. Me too. I don't know. You want to really hear from Dana?
I don't know. Everybody probably doesn't want to hear from me, especially because you're tired of hearing everything I always have to say. But listen, it is a Super Bowl weekend here in Atlanta with my beloved New England Patriots in town. But instead, I choose to come on out here and spend a fantastic evening with some APG members.
What a sacrifice.
Huge sacrifice. I'm still sitting here with my funny red hair on, so it doesn't matter. I am still representing. But hey, listen, great to hang out with all these great APG community folks, and thank you very much for coming out and joining us tonight. So I'm going to pass the mic over to my lovely bride, who I don't think you've ever heard her voice. So here she is. Here's Julie.
Hi, everyone. This is Julie, and it's been a pleasure to meet everyone. I think this might be my first meetup, or I think I might have come once before, but it was maybe 2 years ago. But it was good to chat with everyone tonight, and I'm enjoying lovely dinner and some good brews. So having a great night here. Thank you, Jeff, for putting it together.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without the help of everybody else. And now we have Sir John.
Hey, this is Railroad John speaking, just sitting here enjoying good food, good company, and watching all kinds of different sports on these TVs. This has really been a nice get-together.
And do we dare give this to your lovely wife, Shirley? Probably. She's giving me the look. I better give it to her.
And what am I supposed to say?
Just something really pleasant.
Oh, something really pleasant. Well, I want you to know it's been a very pleasant evening. This is the second or third meetup I've come to. It's been wonderful. I'm one of two women here tonight, so it's been extremely wonderful being surrounded by all these gentlemen. And I've heard more aviation airplane talk than I've ever heard, and probably more than I want to hear, but it's been enjoyable. So thank you, Jeff. And I appreciate my chauffeur, Dana, bringing me to it tonight. Thank you.
He is such a gentleman, and you are such a lady. Thank you very much. All right, so there is a little taste of what these meetups can be like. Stephen was here as well, but he had to leave. Unfortunately, I didn't get the recording done before he left, Stephen Ivy. So he has got airport standby tomorrow morning, kind of early, so he had to get back. So with that, it's time for me to throw this back to you, APG crew in the studio.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Sounds like you all had a great time. Yeah, we did. Didn't we, Dana?
It was really good to see so many APG community folks out there and having a great meal with some really good liquid to join it. It was for me, it was a great beginning for the weekend. So I really enjoyed that meetup. We had a really good time, and great to hear from my wife. I kind of dragged my feet to make sure she would be able to come join us, hoping that you'd set the meetup late enough. Then it turned out a little bit later than anticipated, which actually worked out perfect. So it was fantastic that we were all able to get together.
Right. Rob had a little bit of problems or issues with his connection going from Washington, D.C. to Chicago and then to Atlanta. And luckily, Acme helped out, got him there a couple hours later than he was hoping to. But I picked him up from the airport, drove up, and it worked out great. And it was great seeing Rob. In fact, I saw Rob 2 days later. We were talking about the Super Bowl earlier. He and I were invited to a Super Bowl party over at Mike Carroll's place. And that was a lot of fun. So,
have any audio from that or no?
Nope.
Okay.
It was off the record. Yeah, that was a good time. Let's see. Well, might as well continue on the meetup theme because there is hopefully a meetup happening in Columbus, Ohio, February 15th. Tiffany is going to be there from Buffalo, and she keeps hearing about all these APG meetups, and she wants to be part of one. And so she's going to be there on the, I think that's a Friday, February 15th. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it up or not, but I hope I will be able to. But you know, you APGers, Columbus APGers, you know who I'm talking about. Let's make sure we do it up really nice for Tiffany. I'm sure that she and all of you will have a good time. And Hops in the Hangar and at the Delta Flight Museum on the 23rd of February. So the following week, we're having several of the APG community will be there. Looking forward to that. And if you want to check out all this stuff, you can go over to the Airline Pilot Guy website and just click on calendar, and then you'll see all the APG community calendar stuff. And if you want to go a little bit more in depth, make sure that you listen to Hillel at the end of the show, where he'll talk about how you can join our Slack team. It's a happening place.
And Jeff, can I just add one thing that I forgot to add for you?
Yeah.
And that was when you're talking about Robert coming into Atlanta on an Acme Savior flight. It was actually on our aircraft. That wasn't highlighted, but he did.
Oh yeah, it was Mad Dog.
Yeah.
So, how apropos.
Yeah, he was concerned he would probably never fly one before it was retired.
Mm-hmm.
He got the unique opportunity to enjoy it. And he did express that enjoyment to us.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And also one other addendum.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to. I met up with Robert and John yesterday. Yesterday, Tuesday. We had a little get together, and Robert got to go downstairs and see John's collection of aviation memorabilia. Took a lot of photographs, so I don't know if he's going to post any of those, but unbelievable. Again, unbelievable collection that John has.
That is very, very cool. I look forward to seeing that sometime myself. Hey, speaking of Slack, we have a Slack team and another fantastic aviation podcast. In fact, the creator and host of it is here in our chat room, our live chat room, Max Flight. He posted this email that he received in the Airplane Geek Slack team, and he said, I hope you don't mind if I post it here in the APG Slack room. And I said, absolutely not. Don't mind at all. So this is what the email says. I am the activities leader at the Arkansas Veterans Home in Fayetteville. I have a resident that was a Purple Heart pilot in Vietnam. He loves aviation magazines, and I was checking to see if you offer a free magazine that could be sent to him, or if you have any used aviation magazines that you would like to donate to him. If you're able to assist, please shoot me an email or call me, and then there's a telephone number there, and I will provide the address information so they will get to my resident. And that is from, let's see, Denise Jansen, activities leader at the Arkansas Veterans Home of Fayetteville. And, well, it doesn't say what state. I'm assuming Fayetteville, Arkansas, but it could be Fayetteville, North Carolina. It could be Fayetteville, a lot of places.
Did it say at the beginning of the email? I thought you said Arkansas.
It just says, Arkansas better. Okay.
Okay. I did.
Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Yeah, you're right.
I was listening. Okay. I tried.
Wow. I'm impressed. Okay. So there you go. We have it in our Slack, our Slack page, and also mention it here. So any of you out there who can help out with providing some good stuff for this Purple Heart pilot in Vietnam. Actually, he's in Arkansas. Thank you. Oh, all right. Anything else before we move on to the coffee fund briefly?
I don't think so.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, let me pull up that and hit this.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee. I love tea. I love the APG
Community.
Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
Okay, the Coffee Fund is your way to support the show financially. And if you're interested in doing that and you have the resources to do so, please check out the APG Coffee Fund and become part of the Coffee Fund cadre. And there are two ways to do that. One is the classic method, which is via PayPal. And since the last episode, Chris Lindsay gave us a nice donation. And the other way to do it is to become a patron via patreon.com. And Paul Rack and Andrew Cook are new producers via Patreon. Again, if you want to find out information on how you can join the Coffee Fund, listen to those crew logs and such, head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And a reminder, if you have contributed via the classic method and you haven't received the information about the feed for the crew log, please contact me. Send me an email at jeff@airlinepilotguy.com. I'll make sure I set you up. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for contributing to the show. It really makes a big difference to us.
Stand by for news.
First item in the news is, we talked about it on the last show, the crash of a Piper Malibu, November 264 Delta Bravo, was flying from Nantes, France to Cardiff, and was lost en route. And the last contact they had with them was about 5,000 feet somewhere over the English Channel, and wreckage from the plane carrying the Cardiff City footballer Emiliano Sala has been discovered in the English Channel. Let's see, David Mearns, who led a privately funded search for the aircraft, said it was located off of Guernsey on Sunday. He said, "All I will say is that there is a substantial amount of wreckage on the seabed." Speaking on Radio 4's Today program on Monday, Mr. Mearns said, "We located the wreckage of the plane on the seabed at a depth of about 63 meters within the first couple of hours of searching." He said the plane was identified by sonar before a submersible with cameras was sent underwater and was able to confirm it was the plane. They saw the registration number, and the biggest surprise is that most of the plane is there. It was a private search, raised some money to facilitate this search, and they found it pretty quickly. So we'll put more information via this particular article from the bbc.com in our show notes. What do y'all think?
Yeah, why not?
Well, I'm glad they found it. It'll put a lot of the speculation to rest, because there were reports that people had seen lights and flares on a very small deserted island nearby, and that they might have escaped. But I think they've even managed to locate one body in the wreckage. So there's little doubt these two guys perished, which is a dreadful shame. But we won't know exactly what happens until they bring the wreckage up, assuming they're going to go to that expense, and then the AAIB will take a close look at it and work out the problems, what happened. But there you go.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see. Of course, we don't know the certification of this guy, do we? That was flying. What level he was.
No, yeah, I think we mentioned
there was some question about that. Yeah.
Pilot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He wasn't a commercial pilot.
Wasn't a commercial pilot, so just know whether he had an instrument rating or not, or and what the flight conditions were, and
well, it wasn't good weather, and it had got dark. So unless if you didn't have an instrument rating, you would have been in trouble.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking here, and what my line of thought is, of course, we all remember what happened with JFK Jr. So that's what I'm kind of leaning towards is we probably find there was not a whole lot wrong with the airplane, or maybe there was, I don't know, but maybe it's a pilot issue again. So I'm hoping not.
There was speculation that it could have something to do with icing.
Yeah, that could be. Although Malibu, no, it does not have.
No, I don't think it's certified
does
for
not.
flight into known icing.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I had to think about that for one second. Although one of them, not the Malibu, what's the next one up?
Meridian?
Meridian. I think
Meridian.
Meridian is. I'd have to look it up. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, who knows? We'll be interested to see what happens with this one. Keep on track on.
Well, the Air Investigation Branch, the AAIB, is taking over And I'm sure we'll hear something from them regarding what they determine as far as the cause.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yep.
Very sad.
All right. Moving on. Southwest pilot paid an FAA inspector $3,150 to approve jets during the government shutdown.
A pilot did? Is that what you said?
No, Southwest.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry.
I
Oh,
doubt
wow.
a pilot would have put up $3,150
No, I was like, I
to
don't
do
think they
that.
would have ever done that.
So it says this is from, let's see, travelpulse.com. During the government shutdown, Federal Aviation Administration employees were among the thousands of furloughed federal employees. Because of the shutdown, safety inspections for airlines were halted by the FAA for all airlines but one. According to MarketWatch, Southwest Airlines got around the furlough drawback and managed to get some much-needed safety inspections on 3 jets by paying one FAA employee to return to work for $3,150. Interesting sum. Why not just $3,000 or $3,500? I don't know. I would have asked for more.
Maybe it was an hourly rate. I don't
Yeah,
know.
could be.
Maybe what they get paid for a week, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, the employee just had to come in to work for 3 hours of paperwork. Ooh, that's pretty good. $1,000 an hour. As most of the administrative paperwork had already been done before the shutdown began.
Could that be viewed as paying somebody off?
Well, this article continues. The unusual agreement included having FAA managers and lawyers sitting down with the airline to create a formal agreement. So apparently, they were all on board with this. Ultimately, they agreed to move forward because the move complied with laws and regulations restricting agency functions while the budget impasse dragged on. But apparently, some other companies weren't quite as happy about this whole thing, thinking, hey, wait a minute. We have jets that need to be inspected too. Wish we had thought of that. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Is it actually illegal to, or legal, I should say, to do this?
Apparently, they had the FAA and other lawyers there.
I would think as long as the government agency approves the form of compensation for the employee and the employee is still following all of the appropriate rules and regulations.
Yeah. The article talks about,
Interesting.
Delta Airlines had to postpone the debut of 4 Airbus SEA 220s, or basically the C series, because FAA inspectors weren't available. Union officials were also complaining because they weren't consulted as required, and that the arrangement appeared to represent favorable treatment for Southwest at the expense of competitors.
Well, and the other question I have is that if this person gets reimbursed once the government came open again, do they have to repay the money? Because now he's getting double pay he's getting a pay.
Don't talk about it. That is a good point.
I guess now this all over the papers as well. He has to be very careful with his next tax return.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Perhaps this is not a good thing that happened.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's one of those
Anyway.
things, it doesn't sound like the FAA announced to all operators that this would be a possibility of something they could do. And it sounds like one airline just kind of took their own initiative and tried to do the workaround, and it worked.
I'm sure that this is the very first time that Southwest has ever received
I'm
any
absolutely sure.
kind of special treatment.
Yeah.
100% sure.
100% sure.
Excuse me. Get a little choked up.
I'm sorry. I sneeze.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's continue before we get into too much trouble. Layout of 2 runways. Let's see. Transportation Safety Board probed 27 runway incursions at Toronto's Pearson International between 2012 and 2017. The Transportation Safety Board is recommending that the layout of 2 runways at Canada's busiest airport be changed to lessen the risk of collisions between aircraft. That recommendation was one of 3 included in a report from the independent safety watchdog after its investigations into 27 runway incursions at Toronto's Pearson International Airport between 2012 and 2017, which I already said. The TSB defines a runway incursion as an incident where an aircraft or ground vehicle mistakenly occupies an active runway. A worst-case scenario would be a direct collision between 2 planes as a result. According to investigators, all of the Pearson incidents occurred between two closely spaced parallel runways at the south end of the airport grounds. The two runways are connected by several rapid exit taxiways, small stretches of runway, no, not runway, that aircraft can use to move from one to the other. The journalist was doing so well until then. Both runways are used at the same time during peak hours at Pearson, and each can see hundreds of takeoffs and landings in a single day. That means when the aircraft lands, it needs to move out of the way as soon as possible because the next approaching aircraft might be only seconds behind. And that is true really at all these busy international airports. However, if you look at this article, which we'll include in the show notes, it'll have a couple of graphics that show a bird's eye view of the two runways that we're talking about here, 24 left and 24 right, and the very short segment high-speed turnoffs off of 24 left. And as soon as you go on this high speed, which doesn't allow for a lot of deceleration room, you have to stop pretty quickly to keep from encroaching upon the very closely spaced 24 right. Now, Dana, I know you've been into Toronto. Have you landed on 24 left?
I think I have, actually.
I have, and it's confusing. And it is, actually, maybe I've landed on 24 right, but even 24 right, the taxiing instructions is kind of confusing. At least it was for me, but it's been a while since I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, I was a brand new captain when they recently.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure I went in 24 left, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
My only thought on this is there's actually a pretty easy solution to
Just
it.
close the airport.
Close the airport. Just close
That's
it
easy.
down. Sorry,
Wondering if
gotta
the
close it.
solution is the same as mine. We'll see.
We'll see. But all right, so Philadelphia, I think Nick, as soon as I say this, Jeff's gonna know exactly what I'm going with this. Philadelphia, they land on the inboard and take off on the outboard. So why couldn't they do that here in Toronto? And that way it would alleviate the issue of the high speed to very close runways. And even if they had to build a couple high speeds on to 24 right to accommodate coming off 24 right, that would really eliminate the issue of crossing the inboard runway on a landing roll.
That might be a solution. Yeah.
That's just my thought on that.
Yeah, they've got front looks of it. They've got 4 high speeds off 24 right anyway. So I mean, 2 in the direction 24 right and 2 in the opposing direction. And that's a brilliant idea, Dana. I don't mean to sound patronizing. I think that's really the solution to the problem. But perhaps there's some local restriction that prevents them from doing that. But that would solve all the problems.
And it could be also maybe how you manage the traffic at the departure end of the the beginning part of 24 left, because you just have kind of a little bit of a stub taxiway, kind of a reverse high speed.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to queue many
planes,
aircraft up, would you?
Yeah.
No, but with a little bit of construction down that end versus trying to move a whole runway.
Yeah.
You could very easily build in some space in there in which you could cross traffic. And to be quite frank, Philadelphia, they do have a little bit more space to work with, but they're very efficient where they land and immediately cross one. So it doesn't take but a minute to, you get, a minute and a half, 2 minutes between each landing to cross one guy and be able to get them into position on 24 left in an efficient manner. I don't know. It's just a suggestion because they do it so well in Philadelphia. Sometimes it gets bogged down, but not too often.
Good point.
No, definitely something to look at. Much easier than just eliminating the high speed taxiways there.
Right.
Or just turn them all to 90 degrees so you can't exit.
They're not much better than 90-degree taxiways, really, when you look at the diagram.
But if they were if they were not angled, the temptation to exit at a higher speed would not be there. It'd be more difficult to clear the runway for, traffic on final behind you. But
that would significantly slow down the arrival rate, because now you have to leave more spacing between each aircraft because they have to come to almost complete stop to make the turn, especially with the wide body aircraft. So.
Yeah, but the good thing is they never have snow there because it's Canada, and so it's never a problem with friction or anything.
Never an
Oh, wait a
issue.
minute.
No.
Hang on.
And they're also grooved runways. No.
Okay. Well, let's go back to square
Oh,
one.
Canada.
Oh, Canada.
How
Okay.
I love thee.
We do. We love, especially Canadians.
Oh yeah, my favorite people.
Yes.
Truly. Love them.
All right.
I see Liz has just handed in a resignation.
We're being serious. We love you.
Yeah, there was no.
Although, as we mentioned last show, Liz is not your typical Canadian. She's not quite as nice as most Canadians. No, I'm just kidding. She knows it. Okay.
Definitely handed in a resignation now.
Yeah, it's done. It's a done deal. So the next item is also in Canada, and this is regarding an incident that occurred on a WestJet flight, and it was a UK man, United Kingdom, figures, who was drunk and caused bad behavior on the flight of a WestJet plane, and it caused them to turn around, and he has been fined more than $21,000 Canadian, which is about $100, I think, US. No, I'm just kidding. It's not quite that bad, but I'm really winning a lot of people here, aren't I, tonight?
The conversion's like 1.3.
1.3. Okay. So that's still a lot of money, and it's good to hear finally that people are getting busted for doing stupid things on airplanes and causing diverts. And
Are only people from the UK?
Yeah, well, of course, UK people. So the UK man was absolutely disgusting drunken behavior. It caused a WestJet flight to turn around and land back in Calgary. He had to pay $21,260.68 for the cost of the wasted fuel.
An expensive bar tab.
Yeah. So it's like buying a car, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, David Stephen Young, 44 years old. You get to buy a car, except that you don't get to actually drive the car.
I read that he is only a UK resident.
Oh, okay. Not a citizen?
The UK resident had been visiting his mother in BC. So perhaps his family come from Canada and he's only residing temporarily in the UK. That might be the case.
That could be. Not that it matters. Okay. But if it makes you feel any better, yeah, that's probably it. Okay.
Definitely it.
Anyways, it's good to hear that the legal system is finally doing something. Now, if we can just get the word out to people and keep them from drinking too much on airplanes and causing, returns and diverts, we'll be ahead of the game. But I have a feeling that most people that would do this kind of thing don't really pay attention to this kind of stuff.
No, I think you're right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Particularly when they're drunk.
Yeah. Okay. Item E. This was an incident that occurred, actually an accident, a crash, off of the southern Atlantic Florida coastline, a Piper PA-32RT-300, a Lance 2, November 3016 Lima. On the 1st of February, a prominent veterinarian in Palm Beach and his wife and a couple of dogs were in the Piper Lance 2, also I think is called a Saratoga, depending on the year that it was manufactured. A very nice 6-place single-engine Piper aircraft. They were leaving the Palm Beach airport, heading over to Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas. And if you look at this link in the show notes, you'll see that on FlightAware, they have a superimposition of, is that right? The right word? They
Sure.
superimposed the radar returns that day that were coming in just off the coast. Looks like his flight path headed toward an area of some severe thunderstorms, and it kind of squiggles around a little bit, and then it just gets it loses track and crashes into the Atlantic, and looks like he lost control of the airplane. I'm not sure why, if it had something directly to do with the thunderstorm activity, or maybe I don't know if the gentleman was an instrument rated pilot and maybe he got into situation where he just lost control because he wasn't IFR rated, or if it was just so violent that it just took the airplane down. That it's sad, especially for the doggies. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that on the show because it was kind of a reminder for those of us who are general aviation pilots, and we do the same flight all the time. Apparently, that's what happened in this case. I mean, this doctor, they had a home over in Marsh Harbor that they visited quite regularly, and maybe they'd gotten away with getting around weather systems like this in the past, and this is one that I guess finally caught up with them.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you don't want to develop complacency. You have to have a healthy respect for weather, especially as a GA pilot, especially in a single engine airplane, and especially depending on what your personal qualifications are, whether you're a private pilot, whether you have an instrument rating, whether you have, how much currency or recency of experience you have, how much you fly on a regular basis, how long you've been flying. I think it's not a bad thing to have rather high personal limits and minimums. It certainly beats the alternative.
Isn't it one of the major causes of GA accidents in the States? Bad weather with unrated pilots.
It used to be fuel starvation, but I don't know if that's still.
I don't know the statistics exactly, but certainly, flight into instrument conditions by non-instrument rated pilots is still an issue.
Yeah. And you as part of your private pilot certificate training here in the U.S., and I'm sure it's the same everywhere in the world, there is a certain amount of time. I forgot how many hours, like 4 hours.
3 hours.
3 hours, where you are in simulated instrument conditions, right? You're under a hood, and correct me if I'm wrong, but flying under the hood and flying in actual instrument flight rule conditions or instrument meteorological conditions is not the same.
Not the same thing. Not even a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
You can't cheat. We used to have a saying when I was a student pilot was one peak was worth 1,000 scans.
That's still true.
So easy to cheat. Just have a quick squiz. Oh yeah, I know which way up I am now.
That's still true even in the commercial airline piloting realm. I mean, am I right? You're like looking on the radar, you can't see anything, and then all of a sudden you break out of the clouds and you can see all of the weather systems out in front of you, and that is worth so much more than what you're seeing on the radar. Being able to see it, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, and why sometimes it's much better to fly during daytime versus nighttime, because at nighttime you trust in what's on the radar, and you really don't know what you're really looking at.
Nope.
I mean, we know what we're looking at as far as the weather goes, but we don't know the cloud formations we're flying through. And during daytime you can see and be able to avoid a lot more during the daytime, certainly. But in this case, obviously, clearly in the radar, they were probably flying in a situation that they're not familiar with, just kind of like the same scenario we're just talking about. Who knows?
And I think it also highlights the importance of planning your flight, including weather planning. It's easy. I can certainly understand where folks do the same flight over and over and over again. They live in the area. They're familiar with weather systems and weather patterns. Certainly in South Florida, there's all kinds of, pop-up thunderstorms, especially in the afternoons. Generally easy enough to see, but I think this is something where, a little bit of, because the storms that it appears that they flew through are relatively close to shore, should be easy to see on radar. Planning tools, on weather planning tools. ForeFlight would certainly have that information. National Weather Service, get a briefing.
Yeah, and another thing is I don't know the severity. I mean, it's hard to tell on this radar how severe that thunderstorm or how heavy that rain was. We don't know if it's thunderstorm or rain, but certainly if they had any type of radar equipment, i.e. even looking at your phone, you'd be able to see this stuff out there. And probably with a little bit of briefing, you're talking about may have not decided to go until this stuff moved on, or
Sure.
Whether it's structural failure or just loss of situational awareness. I mean, there's anything that can happen when you get into that type of a scenario too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, another sad story there. Speaking of sad stories, we have another one. This one in Southern California, Yorba Linda. 5 people died after a small plane crashed into a neighborhood in Yorba Linda on Sunday afternoon. Apparently, there was a family there hosting a Super Bowl party, and one single pilot in a twin-engine Cessna 414A had just departed the Fullerton Municipal Airport when the airplane suddenly lost control. There was some video. I don't know if you all were able to see the video of the airplane in flight, and basically looks like it was just spinning. And at some point before it hits the ground, it actually exploded and then crashed into this house and killed the 4 people that were, or 4 of the people that were in the house, and also the pilot in the airplane. And that's all we know really so far until the NTSB is able to investigate the crash and determine what might have happened there. And mentioned it because it's kind of interesting to see when you have eyewitness video of something like this. So
yeah, I didn't get a chance to see the video, but
and I'm not sure it's in this particular article.
no, it's I don't think it is.
KTLA, but if you do a search for it, I'll see if I can remember to put the video that I saw in along with the other stuff that we have there in the show notes. And then finally, Turkmenistan Airlines leaves thousands of passengers stranded after air regulators grounded them for safety reasons. The UK's Civil Aviation Authority said flights from Birmingham and London's Heathrow to Amritsar and Heathrow to New Delhi, which fly via Ashgabat, Turkmenistan, have been suspended. The CAA acted after the European Safety Agency suspended permission for it to fly in the European Union. It also flies from Paris and Frankfurt. Nick, any information about, are there a lot of airlines that are banned from flying in the EU?
Well, yeah, now. Sorry. Yeah, I took a little look at this. I was really quite surprised how many. I mean, it's around 200 airlines that are worldwide that are prevented from flying in the EU. Now, most are because they've come from countries which EASA have banned. So any airline from that country is prevented from flying to our airspace. But some countries have individual airlines that are allowed in because they have been graded as okay. And some of those airlines might have only some of its types of aircraft are allowed in. So there are pretty high restrictions. And I was amazed at the number of blacklisted airlines. So over 200 from 16 countries or states that are either banned outright or placed under restrictions from operating in our airspace. Now, I looked at the figures for the US. You guys only ban countries. You don't ban individual airlines. And it seems to be a much smaller figure. But what happens is that all these countries and or airlines have to be graded by EASA safety consultants. And if they don't pass that pretty stringent test, then they're just not allowed in the airspace. And obviously this airline failed its check. And very sadly, it meant for all those passengers who were booked on it or overseas and were relying on it to get back, we've got to find other means. And what's more, this airline was not part of the protection insurance system that our government runs. So there'll be no government rescue. It's up to the passengers themselves to try and get their money refunded from the airline and then perhaps book with someone else to get their flights conducted. But that was quite an eye-opener for me.
Yeah. What do you think of us now?
Exactly.
I'm actually just looking here. It looks like in the U.S., there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 banned countries because their regulating authorities do not meet FAA and ICAO standards.
Is Indonesia one of the countries?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. Bangladesh, Curacao, Ghana, St. Martin, Thailand.
Thailand. Interesting.
Yeah, that's an odd one, isn't it?
It
I mean,
is.
we banned some countries which you would probably expect, like Angola, Afghanistan, Congo, Djibouti. So a lot of African countries. Iraqi Airways are banned. Iran. Somewhere which just have a terrible so some are countries which are in conflict, so that probably wouldn't be a brilliant idea. Some are just have a terrible safety record, but there are also some that I was a bit surprised. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they have an airline called Mustika Airways. They're banned. Sudan, all airlines are banned. The Ukraine, there's an airline there that's banned. So yeah, it's quite a big list.
Not very inclusive there, Nick.
Well, no, but better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
I will say the list I'm looking at does not say anything about countries that do not offer flights to the U.S. or provide air transport. So there's quite a number of other countries, but
I would imagine that a lot of the airlines that are banned from the EU is because of their proximity to the European Union countries, and that's why I don't see it here, because quite a trek from a lot of those places to head all the way to the United States.
Yep.
All right. Well, that's enough of the news. I think now it's time for your feedback.
Before you move on, forget it.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say I've been doing some research on the Malibu.
Oh, okay.
And looks like it's. I found one article that says it is certified for known icing, and I would expect that it would be because, I'm reading this from AOPA magazine. New Mirages come now. I don't know what year. It did say what year. I don't remember. But new Mirages come with known icing certification. And with it being able to go into the mid-20s, I would imagine it would probably have to be. So if you look at all the pictures,
Malibu or the Mirage?
The Malibu.
Oh,
well, Malibu and Mirage are
they're
pretty much the same thing. It's a PA-46.
Gotcha.
So,
well, I guess if somebody did a search for November 264 Delta Bravo, they can tell us exactly what year that was and whether or not it had that kind of equipment on it, I guess. I know we have some pretty good plane spotters out there that could figure that stuff out.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Continue.
No problemo. All right. I think now it's time for not the best part of the show, but almost your feedback.
Captain, incoming message.
All right. Let's start with Ian. He says, hi, Jeff and APG crew. Ian here again. This is my third time writing in, but I've been listening for about 2 years now, and due to my APG syndrome, I've actually gone back and listened to every single episode. Oh my gosh. Ian.
It's a severe case.
We'll be praying for you.
Severe.
Paul man.
Yes. I just finished listening to APG 358 and have some feedback regarding the PIA ATR-42 crash, or the PIA ATR-42 crash. While I'm no expert, I've heard of numerous ATR-42 and ATR-72 accidents similar to this, and there is apparently a fundamental flaw with the way the feathering system works on these aircraft. This is just a guess, but I suspect that the prop did not feather properly when the engine failed, and it essentially caused so much drag that the plane was unable to keep flying. If you recall, a few years ago, Trans-Asia Flight 235 and ATR-72 had an issue with the auto feathering system, but then the pilot made a fatal error and rolled back the wrong engine. There's been a few other accidents that have occurred because of flaws in the auto feathering system, and the Trans-Asia crash investigation unveiled a fundamental flaw in the prop auto feathering design, electronic and something to do with the way the hydraulic system is designed, if I recall correctly. I think that one he's referring to, is that the one we had the dash cam video of the thing coming in and then just kind of turning? It was
over
very
the bridge.
dramatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not good. Anyway, here's a link to the TransAsia crash that he gave us from flightsafety.org. The next APG episode I'll be listening to on a plane, or the next APG episode he'll be listening to is while he's on a plane, an Air Canada Boeing 787 to Santiago, Chile, where my girlfriend and I will be enjoying the next 3 weeks touring around South America. Favorable tailwinds and Kavu to you all. Ian Griffin from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Thank you, Ian. Yeah, so that could be, that the PIO, I guess it's the Pakistani International Airlines, that basically hit terrain, and we were wondering exactly why they couldn't fly with one engine. But he makes a good point. If the one engine that failed didn't feather properly, it's like a parachute out there, right?
Yeah, like a big speed brake.
Yeah.
It's parachute or barn door or something like that.
I don't know if we'll ever hear exactly what happened in that case, based on the investigatory agency for that country, but hopefully we will. Item 2, Daniel. He writes in, "Hi, Captain Jeff." Hi, Captain Jeff. How are you? Have you seen this entertaining video from CW Lemoyne? I think it is worth sharing it for those guys and gals who want to join the military in your country. Best regards to you and to your crew. This is from Daniel Sanico from Italy. It's been a while since we've heard from Daniel.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from him again.
Yeah. And did you watch the, well, I know Nick did, this infographics fighter pilot video. In fact, you talked about it, didn't you, on the last show? We were talking about eyesight with Nick.
I talked about it at some point, but I don't know if it was on the last show, but I just thought it was just brilliant.
Yeah,
I really did. Yeah,
I did too.
He really ripped into them.
and it wasn't just because he wanted to be mean. It was kind of like there's a lot of bad information that this video is putting out there.
Oh, that's right. I remember there was a query about eyesight levels.
Right.
And I quoted the eyesight levels that Lemoyne mentioned for getting into the USAF because, and that's where the reference was.
And by the way, I said, I thought for some reason, because of the way the name was spelled, Nick, N-I-K, and some other point in there, I think it said N-I-K-K-I. I just assumed that was a feminine version of the name Nick. But he wrote back in and said, oh, by the way, not that it matters, but I'm a guy.
Wait, it matters. Our apologies.
and I deal with that a lot.
Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you do. In fact, the first time I saw Dana on my that I was going to fly with somebody named Dana, I'm thinking, ooh, guess I'm going to make sure my hair is all in place. And
oh my gosh. Well,
I'm just kidding.
To be fair, every time he's flown with Dana since then, he does the same thing.
I do. Yeah, that's true.
Very well in place.
He is always even more perfectly groomed. Perfectly groomed.
And Dana puts his green hair on.
Green or red? Last time I saw
green
him,
or red, yeah.
But I've seen white too. I don't know.
Blonde.
Yeah. Oh, he's such a cute blonde.
Oh, stop it.
Anyway, so you all should check out not the information, the infographics fighter pilot video because it's bad stuff. But
give that a miss.
Yeah, but the one from CW Lemoyne, who I think is, I really like his style. He's a fighter pilot. I guess both former and current. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know a lot about him, but it looks to me like he's getting checked out in all kinds of airplanes concurrently with his job as a major airline pilot. I don't believe he flies for Acme. I tried to look up his name on our seniority list. And I didn't find it, unless he's going by an alias, which is possible.
Yeah, I think I heard a little bit about his background on some of his earlier podcasts. He's a bit of a fighter pilot. So yeah, he's worth listening to. He's very good.
Yeah, I was very impressed with his video stuff. So check it out. And thank you, Daniel, for mentioning it. Hope everything is going well for you in Italy. One of these days, I'm going to visit you and have some good pasta and red wine with you, whether you like it or not. Okay. I've just invited myself to stay with Daniel. I don't even know where he is in Italy, but I'll find you.
What are you doing on July? I don't know what a good time is.
I'm heading there actually right as soon as I finish recording today's show.
This weekend.
Yes, I'm going to find Stephen Ivy. I think he's over there somewhere too.
Mhm.
Okay, Sean. Right, Sean's being a little sarcastic here, I think. So it seems that United Airlines has decided to help promote tourism to Goose Bay again. I think they had to divert into Goose Bay, which begs a question. How would your airlines compensate the flight crew if they were involved in such a flight? Would it be block time from Newark to Goose Bay? So it was a United flight going from Newark to somewhere over in Europe, I think. And they had to divert into Goose Bay. And so would you get block time from that flight to Goose Bay and then per diem until you got back to your base? Or the original, here it goes, Newark to, Hong Kong scheduled flight, right? HKG, Hong Kong?
Mhm.
Something.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then I'll continue and then we can discuss this. By the way, I don't buy United Airlines' excuse that cold weather was to blame with door malfunctions. Aircraft are subject to far worse temperatures in flight, and up in Alaska, every airman has to deal with similar, if not worse, conditions, and they do it daily. Just wondering, Sean. So I'm not sure, about the door thing and why they diverted. Or I guess maybe after they diverted, that may have been a medical divert, and then they had some issues with the doors once they got on the ground in Goose Bay. I don't remember exactly. He does have I think he did send a link to the article, but anyway, so I think it really depends, Sean, on the airline. I can tell you if that had been an Acme flight, we would have been paid for as if we had flown. Well, we have certain contractual guarantees for a certain amount of time or credit time that we get per day of a trip. So whether we made it all the way to Hong Kong or not, we would be guaranteed to be paid 5 hours and 15 minutes. That's our current contract per day. So if we're on a 4-day trip, you'll be guaranteed to get at least 21 hours or more if you end up flying more or the other credit provisions kick in. So now it wouldn't be like, you only flew from Newark to Goose Bay and that's all you're going to get paid because that's all you did. But I would imagine there may be some airlines out there that is actually the case. And then again, there are airlines like Captain Nick's, Acme Red, where he is not really paid anything at all like Dana and I are paid. He's paid a salary per month, and I think there are some overrides in there for various things. Correct, sir?
Yeah, that's right. We get about 3/4 of our pay is just a standard salary, whether you fly or don't. The remaining quarter, if you get trips and fly them, that makes up your final 25%. But if through no fault of your own, the company don't give you enough flights to make it up, you get the money anyway. So, it's I think it's a fairly civilized way of working.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously it's superior because that's the way your airline.
No, I didn't say that.
Strangely similar to how
I can't boost my pay with green slips and the like.
Yeah, sorry. That
yeah. Green slips.
That's the whole point.
I can't get a green slip to save my life now.
It's all to do with seniority. Yeah.
Everything's seniority based.
Well, that's one of the reasons, as many people know that listen to the show, and I could fly basically every airplane that we have on property at Acme, maybe with the exception of the 777, and get paid a lot higher hourly rate and fly the long haul stuff. But being senior on the airplane that Dana and I fly, I can make it up by flying extra and also doing an occasional green slip, which is a double pay situation. So I can make probably more. Yeah, I can probably make more money. I think it's pretty much documented that the people that are making the most money at our airline, Dana can correct me if I'm wrong, are the ones that were flying our airplane because of the way the systems work. It works out.
That's correct, but you also tend to work a lot more.
Yeah, you do work more. That is true. So, but I like working. I like
also
flying.
seems fair. Work more, get paid more.
I like it. So,
or like me, who sits on reserve.
No, you've been flying a lot lately, Dana.
Well, it's only because I bit a line.
Yeah.
And back in March, I'll be going back on reserve.
I mean, how else are we going to go out there and do meet the APGers out there and do all these meetups and stuff? You got to go out there and fly.
That's true.
I'm wondering how many days that Nick has before he retires.
I'm gonna guess. Wait. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. 115.
115. It's got to be more than 100, right?
115.
115. So, if you're not watching the video version of this, Nick is holding up from his app the number of days, his last day at work, and the number of days he has left. 115 days.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Where is that calculator, by the way? Because I'd like to put that in and see what I have left.
Well, 40,000.
What's the name? What's the name of the calculator? We can all figure this out, and then
It's
it will be
called-
very amusing for.
It's just
no
called
one.
a reminder. So it's obviously I've got an Apple phone. So
it's just a reminder app.
Yes, it's just called Reminder.
No, it's a
and
separate. It's a third-party app called Reminder. Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'll have to get it
it's
too.
a
so I
free
can
download.
I'm gonna get it right now, and then I will calculate if I retire at a normal expected age. We'll see how many days of working that still is.
Well, it'll tell you not only days, but it'll tell you seconds and all that sort of stuff. So, for example, I've just crossed the 10 million second mark. So I have less than 10 million seconds now.
It's just called Reminder or Remind Me. No.
It's just called Reminder.
Reminder.
It's a. I'll show you what the app looks like.
Reminder.
Show me
Just
what
close that.
This is fascinating for the
go.
people watching.
It is.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just a little sort of. It's not very clear, is it? It's just a little
Back up.
sort of.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Little alarm clock looking.
Little alarm clock looking thing with numbers on it and called Reminder.
I wonder if that's not available in the U.S.
I mean, well, maybe here it is. Reminder and countdown.
Oh, why can't I find it?
I think I just found it.
Reminder.
And we can all play the game.
And
see who's got the smallest number. I win.
Who's got the
Smallest
smallest
what?
what?
Who's
I found it.
what? Yeah, smallest what?
That's not what she said.
Reminder
Oh,
and
here we go.
countdown.
Open.
Yeah.
I got it downloaded.
Okay.
Amateur
Is
folks.
this
Yeah.
really just wonderful?
I'm sure people are
Audio?
just.
On the podcast.
I am
loving it.
opening it up
Yeah.
right now as we speak. Yes.
You're just
the
going to have to
actress
bear
to
with
the
us,
bishop.
folks. Just fast forward if you don't want to hear this.
I'm sure Jeff will edit this out in post because this is
I'm
not
not
very
sure.
interesting for
May
audio.
not.
Well, let's, I have to do some math here even to figure out. Let's see.
Okay. So am I forced to retire on my exact birthday or the
Let's
end
all
of that
assume
month?
our exact birthday.
No,
when
you,
we turn.
you can't fly it on your birthday. You got to be the day before because
Oh, okay.
once you've turned that
day
age,
before.
you no
Oh, that's
longer allowed to
Christmas
fly
Day
it.
then. On
Oh wow, that'll
2023.
be a nice Christmas present for you.
Okay.
Oh, this is a lot of time.
December 25th, 2023. Okay. Add time.
Oh
What?
wait, I didn't do this. right.
23:59.
I didn't do it right either.
Events.
I only have 6,042 days. 6,042 days.
Is that
Boy.
all?
Which is, let's see, 16.54 years, 198.57 months, 863 weeks, 863.17, in 6,042.21 days, or 145,013
Okay, that's enough.
hours.
Oh, wait,
Wait
where's
a
that?
minute. 1,782 days.
Yeah.
That's not bad, Jeff.
1,782 days. for
I'm
me.
going right up to that
1,000.
10K mark. 332 days until 10K to go.
Wow. Okay, yes.
Well, that's not even a marathon, Steph.
Nick, you win. You win.
One of the few things in life I have.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true
We
at
can't
all.
think of any others. But
Yeah, but Friday 13th,
It was the
7 months and 6 days.
yes.
So
There you go.
I'm thinking, speaking of winning, Nick, I think that you won when some young lady named Jilly looked at you and thought, that guy, he's kind of cute. I think I'm gonna go after him. And I have some audio that we can play that has the lovely Julie's voice. So what do you think I do? What do you think about doing that right now?
That's a good idea. Hopefully a little discussion afterwards, prompted by Josine's feedback from a couple of days ago. We've been talking a lot recently about relationships and what it's like to be the other half of a partnership with an airline pilot. This is a little chat with a lady who understands that job very well and often described it as the hardest job in the Air Force. So, Mrs. Anderson, how did you meet your pilot?
I was cycling down the road one day, saw a friend of mine. There was a guy in the back seat who popped his head out the window and took a photograph of me.
No, you didn't know he was a pilot. So when our relationship developed, how did you feel about the possibility of spending your life with someone with a flying career?
Initially, it sounded very glamorous. Later, I learned a little more.
That sounds awful. So hopefully it didn't disappoint you too much.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was just something I knew absolutely nothing about. I'd had no contact with the military up until then, so it was a mystery.
So what was it like the first time you came up to an RAF mess and spent some time with all these pilots?
Oh, that was hilarious. They were all very gracious and introduced themselves and then proceeded to launch into conversation, which I hadn't got a blooming clue what they were talking about. Everything was a bunch of acronyms, and they seemed to converse a lot with their hands.
Yes, the flying hands in the bar. That's a well-known fighter pilot trait. So you eventually decided that this bloke was going to make a good partner for life. Did you really think much about that, or was this your hormones driving your conscious mind?
Oh, I think I'd fallen firmly in lust, yes.
Okay, but did any of the practicalities about our life together occur to you back then?
I hadn't got a clue. Main object was to actually be living in the same area.
Good point. So getting married cured that problem, but now you were fully immersed in the sort of flying world, the military flying world. How did that suit you?
Initially, it was something of a shock, quite an adjustment. And of course, we're talking 40 odd years ago. So the military in those days was still pretty old school. Wives worked if they could get a job. Otherwise, they just sort of hoofed around the country trying to find something to do, keep themselves busy.
You were sort of expected, though, to participate in wifely duties that involved the Air Force, yes?
Oh, yes, there were the joys of coffee mornings and that sort of thing, yes. And lots of interesting events in the mess, which were tremendous fun, and a great deal of dressing up and great parties.
But you, of course, started off as a career woman. You were a teacher.
Yeah, that went down the tube the day I met you, I'm afraid.
So how come?
Well, it was quite simple. I left college and there was an enormous glut of teachers, so I went into the civil service. That was fine. When we first got married, I managed to get a transfer, but the posting only lasted 6 months. Therefore, when we moved to Lincolnshire, I was unemployed. At that point, I still didn't drive, and the nearest town had 1 bus a day to it, so no trains, no other transport. So I was scuppered at that posting. We then moved to Scotland, where I discovered that being a qualified teacher meant absolutely nothing. I would have had to go back to college to study for at least another year. And so it went on. We went to North Wales, where I didn't speak Welsh and therefore couldn't teach. And eventually, after we clocked up about 8 or 9 years, we produced offspring. So that meant my career was never really going to take off.
So, did you ever, during those first 10 years before children appeared on the scene, ever resent the fact that you weren't able to pursue your career of choice?
Well, actually, I had some weird and wonderful jobs, many of which were highly amusing. Things like being a tree inspector on a Dutch elm disease project. That was thoroughly good fun. Traipsing over Northeast Fife on foot, inspecting trees. I worked in lots of very smart hotels in places like St Andrews and met some amazing people. Lots of very posh golfers, people like Bob Hope, just astounding and a great experience all around.
But did you resent the fact that you weren't able to do the thing that you had trained for?
No, I think I was having way too much fun.
Okay. All right, let's move on to children then. I mean, up to that point, we'd had what I would fondly describe as a fun time without many responsibilities, enjoying everything that the Air Force could offer, yes?
Oh, yeah. We had a great time. There was a kind of camaraderie on base where, you know, if one squadron of the guys was away, then the other squadron was at home. So if your washing machine broke down, somebody else, a girlfriend whose husband was on the other squadron, he'd come and have a look at it for you and sort things out, and vice versa. There was that family relationship that you have within the Air Force, that there's always somebody who'll give a hand.
Now, once children appeared, you had more responsibility towards your family now and less towards your husband. How did that affect things?
Interesting. It happened at a very, very busy time. Our firstborn was born in the middle of the QY course. And that was bonkers, because if he hadn't arrived on a Saturday, I don't think you'd have been there. I remember you bringing me home from hospital and having to rush straight back to work. And if it hadn't have been for the fact that a very good friend happened to meet me on our driveway, I would have been in pieces by the end of the day. As it was, she just fed me a glass of sherry.
Yes, the usual Air Force cure-all. It was tough, and tough for both of us, because I was pursuing a career and was in a particularly difficult place work-wise, and yet you had this babe in arms. How much pressure did you feel under?
I didn't feel pressure because, as I say, the Air Force was very, or the girls, the wives, were very supportive of one another, which was the huge advantage of living on the married patch. It meant that if you were having problems, there would be somebody who'd pop round and have a natter or say, oh, yeah, mine did that, and this is what I did. Try that. That sort of thing. Was extremely helpful. But it did mean that you missed out a lot on the early years of your children.
I have to agree with that. But there were other things you did. Can you remember times when I wasn't around to take or help with some of the major events like moving house?
Yeah, some of my favorites. Yes, there's nothing quite like moving into a married quarter on your own. Your husband's somewhere else in the world, and you're trying to convince the family's officer that you need various things fixing or sorting out. So yes, that could be challenging, and now and again you really had to stand up for yourself.
You had to complete entire house moves all on your own. For example, I basically left you to move from Australia to the UK with two very young children, which you accomplished entirely on your own, yes?
Yes, that was a challenge. Yet again, friends were amazing. They, in Australia, helped me clean my quarter, helped me move into a motel for a few days, looked after me, delivered me to the airport. I then got down to Sydney and stayed with yet more friends who delivered me to the airport there. I managed to fly across to Hong Kong, stayed 3 weeks with some very good friends there and got my sanity back together. They put me on an airplane, which was a trooper, which was very entertaining because everybody else on it, bar one lady with 3 kids, was a young serviceman just on an average trooper. There was very little service, very few flight attendants. And I was stuck with a baby who was fast asleep on the seat and a small boy who needed to go to the loo. And there's just no help for it because he appears walking down the corridor and he couldn't get his trousers back on, basically.
Yeah. And where was I at the time?
Oh, you were on a jolly in Malaysia.
Well, I was on an exercise in Malaysia, but yes, let's call it a jolly. That's fine. No problem.
I think there were a great deal of satay eating and beer swilling things going on as well as the exercise.
Well, we don't fly 24 hours a day. Moving on, back to the United Kingdom, and we finally finished up our Air Force career, and I decided to move to the civvy world. Did that worry you at all?
It worried me when we had 10 months of you being unemployed. That was a bit scary because you'd made the decision to go. We'd had long conversations about it. And we had to make that decision a full 12 months before it actually happened, in which time it had transpired that there were very few jobs available in the civvy world. And that was scary.
Yeah. So how did you feel then in your role as a partner in our relationship?
Again, a supportive role. I think I had to basically help you through it as well, because you were naturally feeling very nervous about the whole procedure. You've managed to go through your courses, you've managed to get your qualifications sorted out, but there was just this gap in the market. There was nobody looking for pilots. And that was a very scary point because we left the Air Force with a finite amount of funding and suddenly it was being spent quite fast.
In the civvy world, you lost that enormous family of friends that we used to pitch in and help out in the military world. Did you feel that you were on your own a lot more?
Yeah, that was a bit of a shocker. I was so used to having the girls around me who would support me in various things. So yes, suddenly I was amongst people who hadn't got a clue what I was doing or what you were doing. They didn't understand things like you don't have weekends when you have a husband who's a long-haul pilot. A lot of things just didn't gel initially. We'd also moved to a place where I knew nobody. So it took a lot of adjustments on both our sides as well.
You were still working and still hadn't been able to get a job as a teacher.
Well, I did eventually get some part-time jobs, but yes, they were very different. One was just a shop job to fill in some hours and get a bit of pocket money. But after that, I managed to get some rather more interesting jobs.
Like what?
Well, I went back to the civil service, but working for the Forestry Commission, which was fascinating because my basic qualification was a teacher, but my main subject being biological sciences. So I found that fascinating and I had a great time doing that job. But then, of course, we came to the point where your mum was very poorly and I couldn't keep on dropping my job to run home every time something went wrong there. So that was when I had to leave the commission.
Looking back, though, and comparing our first 10 years or so in the civvy world, was it easier or harder than it had been in the military?
Harder in some ways. When we were in Australia, there was the lovely situation where you would walk in the door at 6 o'clock. Our meal would be on the table by about 10 past. Kids would be in the bath by 7 o'clock, and then we had that lovely evening to ourselves. But there was a very set way of doing things, and we had a lovely routine. We'd take the kids off around the Air Force Base on our bicycles and show them the kangaroos in the evening. So we had a family life. When we got back to the UK, you had a more responsible job, and you were lucky if you actually saw your children during the daylight hours. Certainly you were off at the crack of dawn, very often not home until they were back in bed. So that was the toughest bit for me. Fortunately, though, we lived back in a village I knew, on a base we knew, and so we did okay.
But once we were moved into the world of the civilian pilot, and without any of that support or familiarity, how did things change?
That got tough because I was in new territory. The kids were growing up fast. They were quite demanding, as small boys will be. You become a taxi service for your offspring. And you still have a house to run, which is rather different to living in an Air Force quarter. So yes, lots of adapting all the time. You're always changing and getting used to the fact that you weren't just down the road on the base. You could be anywhere in the world, really. So if your son walks in the door and his chin's bleeding and he's just basically come off his skateboard, you're the only person who can deal with it, and it means you have to organize everything.
You make it sound a little like being a single parent.
Very like being a single parent on occasions. Yeah.
And if you're a person not up to taking that kind of load, what pressure would it put upon a relationship?
A considerable amount. I had people, wives in the Air Force, who couldn't get a handle on the fact that they had to be responsible for nearly everything in the house, from washing up the breakfast to paying all the bills and dealing with the bank. Suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you have all the responsibilities of the family life because your husband's not in the country, so he's not much use.
Well, some might say they're never much use, but let's not go into that.
Let's not.
So there seems to be emerging quite a definite definition of our roles. So I was the pilot. I was going to work and disappearing off, and everything that was left at home fell into your lap, was your responsibility.
All the domestic trivia was mine.
Well, you call it that, but we're talking dealing with banks, dealing with the kids and all their medical problems, dealing with tax returns, anything that came in through the door, you basically looked after and sorted, yes?
Yeah.
So you were effectively my bank manager, my medic, my psychiatric support, the bringer-upper of my children. You made all the decisions with regards to schooling. You were there at the teacher parent evenings. You were the ones moving the kids around, doing everything. It sounds like more than a full-time job.
Oh, it is. Yes. And that, I think, is where new wives with small children now have even more pressure on them, because they're also expected to hold down a decent job.
If, use your imagination, if the roles had been reversed and you were the pilot, and what kind of a husband would you be looking for because of your understanding now of what he would have to do whilst you were away on a flight?
He would need to be very adaptable, very accepting. I mean, I know one young lady who found it very hard to find a stable relationship because the guy she met couldn't handle the fact that she wasn't around on a Friday and Saturday night to do the normal going out and entertaining. Suddenly they were in a situation where she could be anywhere, and they didn't like that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, our relationship with regards us as working people is coming towards an end. How do you expect things to change in the next few years?
Well, I think it's going to take the best part of a year for you to just come down from the constant pressure, because let's put it very frankly, flying is a tough job. People imagine that it's incredibly glamorous. They see this chap walking through in a smart uniform with lots of stripes on his shoulders or his sleeves, and they think that's a glamorous job. You're going to all sorts of countries all over the world. What they don't see is what we wives see. For instance, you'll be away from a trip. I'll have 4 nights good sleep. You'll fly through 2 nights and you'll get 2 nights interrupted sleep in a hotel. Is it any wonder that you come back exhausted? So those sort of pressures are going to be off, which will be fantastic. It'll take you a long time to get used to being at home.
With regards to Josine's feedback, what of her questions do you think you can answer?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I think, yes, it's definitely better for a pilot to have somebody behind him or her supporting them in their role, because it is a difficult role. There's no getting away from it. It's a role where you are constantly re-examined on the subject of flying, medically. You have to jump through lots of hoops. Your simulators where you've got somebody breathing down your neck all the time. That sort of thing is very hard to deal with. You have to study a great deal, which is something people don't see. They just assume that you're qualified and that your qualification just carries you through. But actually things are constantly changing. So you need someone to be able to accept the other domestic pressures. And that sort of thing is just going to go away. And it sounds heavenly.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. I hope that opens up food for thought on the show. And many thanks for opening up to us.
Okay.
What an awesome interview. Jilly, if you're listening, which I doubt she will be, but you can tell her now.
Chucked up in bed.
Wow. Thank you for doing that interview or conversation with your husband. And that was very enlightening.
So you couldn't ask for anybody that's more eloquently spoken as the two of you are, Nick and Jilly. You do such a great job interviewing, number one. Number two, she seems like a fantastic partner for you, as we already know, in that she's very well spoken, very well thoughtful.
Y'all talk real good.
Real good. Not like us Bostonians, Hey, you over there, get over here, will you? And that means we love you, that means, hey,
well, thanks very much, Taylor.
No,
but I don't even think I could do a good Southern accent at the moment. I think Jeff summed that up. But I agree.
I really wanted to facilitate that we were going to come back to Josine's feedback of 2 or 3 shows ago, and had questions about do we think that we could have done our jobs without the support of our spouses, and how do we feel that lady pilots manage, because they are unlikely to get the same level of support from their husbands in this situation. And also, how do bachelor pilots cope? Do they get on as well as ones in relationships?
So I've had a lot of thought about this, and those things in particular. And I think what it comes down to is that the answer will always depend. It will always depend on the person that you're talking about, because there are some people who are just very naturally independent and may not mesh well in close quarters with other people. And those are the people who, stay single or don't have a lifelong committed relationship, but still manage to function just fine. And even with highly demanding jobs, even jobs where they may not be home all the time or may not be home during business hours or have free time during business hours to do the mundane things in life, go to the bank, go to the grocery store. We're kind of fortunate right now in that we live in a world where you can work around a lot of those things. I think that was very different even 25, 30 years ago. For example, I'm thinking of things like I do all of my banking online. The bank I use is not even physically in the same state that I'm in. And that's never been a problem because you can do it all on the internet. You can deposit checks with a picture of the check and upload that. Same with withdrawals. You can send money to people without having to physically write a check or go to the post office and mail things. You can set things up for automatic bill payment. The things that are more specifically domestic, I'm thinking of things that are, again, kind of mundane, like when do you have time to get your laundry done if you're working all day long and you don't have someone else to do it? Well, you work around that too. You start a load in the morning and, you finish up in the evening when you get home. So that way you're not having to do all of it in one big chunk. It depends on the person. I think it works a lot easier when there's when you have help. I know that personally. It can be hard to find the right person to join you in that journey sometimes, and I think those of us who have found that person count ourselves very lucky indeed.
So my fraternity brother was just here. I went home to my fraternity reunion back in December. I think I probably talked about those things. And one of the things that I made a very keen observation of is that my fraternity was an international aviation, professional aviation fraternity. And what I made an observation was that every one of us that was there, all of us, were with our original wives. Now, I don't know that it really speaks volumes to the profession. All of us are pretty much aviators. But, I'm sitting here and listening to Nick's story, and I'm relating to what they went through as to what I went through with my wife, and the fact that every one of my brothers is in the same scenario. Most of us weren't in the military, and we had very supportive wives coming through this entire time. Now it's a lot different time going forward. There's a lot less. There's a lot more females that are coming into the business, and I think I agree with Steph on a lot of things, and that is that it is up to individuals, and things are a lot different nowadays on the domestic front. There are plenty of stay-at-home dads. There are, the wives can be the breadwinner, and it's just not in any profession specific to aviation. It's look at Dr. Seth's profession. There's a lot of doctors out there that pull 36-hour shifts to 24-hour shifts or whatever, and they're not available to go do what they need to do. So I think it would apply in most professions, that we need to be, if we are dependent people upon each other. The whole background with Nick and Jilly is just amazing. I'm sitting here and listening to what their background is, and I can relate almost completely exact same background, although I'm civilian, to the amount of support that Julie's family and Julie provided me. When I was barely could put gas in the car to get to the airport to go to work as a customer service agent. Now, fast forward, I graduated college. It wasn't without her support, and became a pilot, and so on and so forth. So very similar circumstances, and it is really the partnership that helps out. And just this last week, we had the heating go out in the house. So I wasn't around. I was on an overnight. So who took care of that? Julie. So we have very similar paths, and I think Josine, I was thinking about you when I had to have Julie come back home while she's working to take care of the heating unit, which she had never done before. So the airline business lends itself to a lot of time that you spend away from each other, as Nick and Julie were so eloquent in talking about. And the airline business, I think, is not a complete different world, but it's a lot different world than military, because military can be more like a regular job where you have the support around you. The airline business in itself is very lonely. We fly with different people every time we go to work. It's not like you're in a patrol car with another officer and you get to know that family. We all do the same job, but we don't really spend a lot of time together outside of work. So
that is so true. So many of the people that, the company that I work for, our company, Dana, when I got hired, 90-something% of us were previous military. And making that transition from the military to the airlines is really difficult for a lot of people. Not so much for me, because I was flying in the military doing basically airline type flying, but a lot of the folks were involved with, the squadron, whatever that term is called, that squadron ethic, the squadron, Nick, help me out.
I was going to call it a family, the support network that you get from all being in the same boat. And all knowing what's going on. All the wives get together. That
right.
Excuse me. Support network.
Yeah, he's getting choked up, and I don't blame him because
He really
I'm
is.
getting choked up as well.
I'm dying of peanuts.
I'm on the wrong side of the pond here, Nick. I can't help you over here. I can't.
But it's tough, I think, for a lot of people transitioning to the military, from military to civilian airlines, because you don't have that same that family, as you said. That's the best word for it.
Yeah, you don't have that family. You don't have that network that you can rely upon. When Julie and I came down here, even though I wasn't quite a pilot yet, it was the fraternity brothers that I left behind that came down to when I first moved to Atlanta. Who did I move in with? My fraternity brother, who had moved down here at a time. So that family was there, but becoming a pilot, I have very few friends that are actually pilots here in Atlanta.
And that's, one of the things about this whole APG community thing is so important for so many of us, is that you all are family to all of us. And
true.
That's, because we have the same kind of passion about aviation, and we really do care for each other. And that's an important thing, to have that kind of support.
That's exactly right, Jeff. Now, in the military, it's got, when we were in the military, it's changed since then, to be truthful. All the families lived in the same sort of housing estate. We all had married quarters. Everyone was in the same boat. And we all knew what each other was doing, even if it was another squadron. So a squadron detachment, everyone would be there to help out the wives who were missing their husbands for several weeks, or whatever was going on. In the civilian world, that doesn't naturally exist. So you have to create one, whether it be your church, whether it be the mums at the school gate, whether it be the dog walkers you meet every day, whether it be the clubs you join or whatever, or in our case, the APG community. Now, we're a pretty remote community because we're spread all around the world, but we know wherever we go, we're going to meet listeners, and we know those listeners often get to know each other. So we're just another form of community. And I think one of the things that you need as a pilot when you are away from home so much is support for your loved one at home, and that they don't feel that they're isolated, because they're continually left to manage everything. And the one thing that Dana mentioned is the one thing that we didn't talk about, because you can bet your bottom dollar if there's going to be something blow up in the house, the roof is going to cave in, some drama, the pipes are going to burst, some drama is going to happen. I'm never at home to deal with that. It's always Gilly who has done that. Yeah, well, there is.
You wouldn't even know who to call.
Exactly, like Ghostbusters.
You'd have to call Jilly and say, Jilly, who do I need to call?
To be absolutely truthful, Dana, you're right. When I've got one of these problems and I'm going, oh, geez, I need a checkbook. I go, Jilly, who are we banking with nowadays, and how do I get hold of a new checkbook? So she has been an absolute rock for me, and she can only do that often with support from other people, and because we're the ones rarely around to give it.
Just going back to some of Josine's specific feedback and commentary for a moment, whether, because I think there was a bit about postulating that couples, specifically committed couples, for one of the partners is an airline pilot, and being in that relationship led to more, basically being necessary for that to function. I would say that while it may not be necessary, I think that it does create a better environment and a better, what's the word I'm looking for, really? It just makes it a whole lot easier for the person who's away from home if you can have that person, if you can have a partner with them who's at home all the time and able to take care of all of those things like Nick and Dana and I have been talking about. So I think in what Josine was trying to drive at, I'm sorry, I have a snoring puppy on my lap now too, which is distracting me horribly. I don't know if we can hear that.
We can't hear him. So
okay. He's definitely snoring.
Assumed it was you. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I think that while it may not be necessary, I think it creates potentially a more successful pilot in the long run. For
successful and safer.
successful, safer, yeah, and probably
When you're not-
happier.
when you're not worried about domestic issues back at home, when somebody's there to support. I can see that.
Yeah. You sleep better, you prepare for flights better because you're not dealing with everything else that on your few days off, you've got someone else in the team who's going to do that for you and certainly help out, which allows you to concentrate your mind on your job. And we know just how important that is.
You know, back before the days of cell phones and the immediate access and whatever that we have in this day and time, my wife said, Linda said, I'm not going to call you because it's difficult because I have to call the hotel and then I have to ask for your room. And then a lot of times I have to leave a message. I'm not sure if you're going to be sleeping or not. I'm not sure what your schedule's like. And I'm afraid that if I try to contact you while you're on a trip, you're going to think that there's something going wrong at home. And I know that you have a very high pressure job and you don't need that added stress. So she basically said, if you ever hear from me while you're on a trip, assume that it's not a good thing happening at home.
That's now you don't ever hear from her anymore.
Well, now I don't hear from her at all.
I was trying to put it in a nice
and we live in the same house.
Yeah.
But bam, rim shot. Yeah. Anyway, but again, that was the days before the access that we have with cell phones and everything else.
That's very true, but that access can be a double-edged sword in that when you do hear there's problems, it can be incredibly frustrating. I've had crew that have had domestic disasters at home. They find out about it en route. They can't get home any quicker, but it's just preying on their minds for the next 12, 14, 24 hours or whatever it is until they do get home. And sometimes, it's a bit like the guys that go away on nuclear submarines for long patrols under the ocean. They're allowed to sign a piece of paper which says, I don't want to receive news from my family while I'm down here. Because if you do get news that there's been a terrible disaster, there's no way in God's earth are they going to come back and cut their patrol short just for one guy and his disaster at home. So all that's going to happen is that it's going to be a nightmare for you
and it might adversely affect their performance or ability to do their job in the meantime.
For certain.
And you can't change anything about it.
Yeah.
No.
What a great discussion. Thank you, Nick, for again taking the time to talk with your lovely spouse. And again, please tell Jilly that we really did appreciate her insight.
It's very kind of you. Thanks very much. I'll pass that on.
And I really
Josine for that awesome piece of feedback that has generated so much discussion.
And
very
the
important
lust.
discussion.
I'd like to hear about the lust there, Nick.
Yeah, almost came as a surprise to me, actually. Yes. I thought I misheard the first time. What?
Now, the big question, she's going to expect you to spend a year trying to get acclimated to being home. How are you guys going to get along being around each other
I was
all
thinking
the
to
time?
myself, wow, this is not going to be a good situation for Jilly.
Oh, relax. I'll be down the bowling green. No problem at all.
And you're going to be over here in the States, so Nick and I are going to do an
Yeah,
RV tour
that's right,
of the United States.
Yes, I see a lot of travel in your future.
Yeah.
It'll be
Hey,
fine.
Jeff, I figured out something, by the way.
What?
Speaking of RV,
yeah.
Remember, now we have the ability to move part of our vacation.
Yeah.
And drop a trip.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do in July, as long as I can do it.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Look forward to seeing you the entire week.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Yes, Liz says follow-up interview in a year for Nick and Jilly. See how
That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, okay.
That might be in the psychologist's office.
That's right.
That might be a counselor.
Yeah.
Marriage counseling.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not funny. Okay.
No, it isn't, because we all know you guys will be fine.
Yes, indeed.
Let's move on, shall we, to item number 4. This is an interesting one. This is from Glaucus, right? Steph, please help me.
Glaucus.
Thank you. That's what I said. Hi, team. I understand that sometimes airlines go the extra mile to please customers, but this is, in my humble view, a bit too much. And then he gives us a link to a news.com.au website article about a flight attendant. Well, I'll talk about it in a second. Have you ever experienced something like this? Having to do something for a customer or a passenger that you really didn't want to do, but did it anyway? Thanks for all your great work. It's nothing but a pleasure to listen to you every week. Cheers, G-Man, Glaucus. And he said, P.S. The dream is still alive. I'm just working out the best way to go about it. Thank you to the wonderful APG community for all their support. We're here for you, Glaucus. We really are. And thank you for sending in this feedback. Okay, here we go. You ready? Flight attendant says overweight passenger forced her to wipe his bottom. A shaken flight attendant has told how a man demanded she carry out a disgusting task for him while he was in a plane toilet. An overweight passenger aboard a Taiwanese airline flight forced flight attendants to remove his pants so he could use the toilet. Then, well, that's bad enough, but then they needed to wipe his bottom.
Backside.
Backside. Thank you. As he, I don't remember reading this part, but as he moaned in pleasure, according to reports. Wow. A flight attendant for Eva Air, Taiwanese airline, which only employs female cabin crew, described the crappy duty the passenger subjected her and 2 of her colleagues to aboard the Los Angeles to Taipei flight on Saturday, according to Focus Taiwan. The New York Post reported that the man, who was confined to a wheelchair, told the flight attendants he needed assistance to use the lavatory about 2 hours into the flight. I felt that as a flight attendant, this is a quote, I felt as a flight attendant, removing a passenger's underwear was beyond the scope of my responsibilities. I agree with that. The flight attendant told a news conference where she was accompanied by reps from the Taiwan Flight Attendants Union. I told him we couldn't help, but he started yelling. He told me to go in there immediately and threatened to relieve himself on the floor, she said. The flight attendant fronted a news conference to describe her traumatizing experience. As the passenger's genitals were now exposed, one of my colleagues brought a blanket, which I used to cover his modesty, she continued. But he very angrily slapped my hand away, saying he didn't want it and only wanted me to remove his underwear so he could use the toilet. The man also insisted that they keep the door open because otherwise he couldn't breathe. So anyway, this guy is a little overweight, 199 kilograms.
437.8 pounds.
What?
How do you even fit in the lavatory?
Holy moly.
A kilogram is 2.2 pounds. So.
Wow.
Well, that's only twice my weight.
It's almost twice my weight.
Then he refused to leave the bathroom. Yeah.
Depends how tall he was, I suppose. If he was a short chap, he would be quite wide.
So he refused to leave the bathroom unless they wiped his backside after he finished his business. Okay, so that's enough of this. Yeah, that is way more than
it certainly is
above
beyond the scope of a flight attendant's responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I think they would have been well within their right to, I mean, I don't work for this airline, so I don't know what's expected, but yeah, I would have, if I were in their position, I think I would have politely refused his request and told him to figure it out on his own.
We've got Owen in the chat room. We know he's a flight attendant, so I'm just curious to know what he would do. I'm sure he'll reply eventually, but do carry on.
Right. And Max Flight makes a very good point. He says, if you have a medical condition that requires that kind of help, don't you think that you'd have some kind of arrangement in place in advance?
Oh yes, you're in on my outfit. You're required to fly with an attendant if that's the severity of your disability.
Right. Apparently, this guy is a somebody who flies a lot on this airline, and he was known to the flight crew as being someone that requires this kind of thing, and it looks like he takes advantage of it more and more. I don't know. There's more to it, I think, than just having an issue where he couldn't do this himself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean,
Okay.
there are people who have to do this professionally, whether you've got, if you're disabled or you're, and you have to have a carer in, but this is not the usual duties you would expect of a flight attendant.
No, this is, as we've said so many times, and I'm not sure if we're going to say or cover this in today's podcast or not. I think we might be able to do it. But the role of the flight attendant is not to do this sort of thing. They're here. They're
there for your safety.
Exactly. Help you get your I don't know how to say this without. No, I'm not going
offending millions of flight attendants.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
To get your ASS off the airplane safely. Right?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
And not to
whether it's being wiped or not. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that is irrelevant at that point. Does not
Yes.
matter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see some of the more seasoned flight attendants be able to do that.
Yeah.
Good point.
So
I,
it
So,
kind of
so I'm fully on the flight attendant's side here. This is
No, I'm firmly in the camp of this passenger was whether he needed assistance or not, this was inappropriate.
Oh, very
completely inappropriate.
Very
and the airline should not tolerate this, and the flight attendant should not tolerate it.
No.
I mean, we're not in the medical field.
This is
Even in the medical field, in some instances, this would be inappropriate.
This is probably going to affect this flight attendant for the rest of her life psychologically.
I hope not, but
I mean, this is a traumatic thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Speaking
and
of
and hopefully he took a shower at some point.
Speaking of traumatic things, we're going to skip.
A lot to ask there, Dana.
We're going to skip to 11 because it kind of has something kind of ties in a little bit. Sean and Robert both sent links to this article from The Drive. Let's see. So a sister airline, very similar to Acme, Delta Airlines, answers the big question: do planes have in-flight fart filtering technology?
My airplane.
So this is not your average customer support interaction. Kyle is the West Coast editor for The Drive. He recently that's something I'm right. Okay, everybody farts. It's one of those comforting truisms in life until you're crowded into an enclosed space with 300 other people, forced to breathe in some choice flatus. A Delta Airlines frequent flyer recently raised that very concern to the company on Twitter, and surprise of surprises, whoever runs the account took it seriously enough to provide the answer we've all been waiting to hear. The short answer: yes, there is a fart filter on planes. Sort of. The flatological story started off when a Twitter user named DJ Rankin posted a frightening statistic claiming passengers expel around 368 liters, about 13 cubic feet of gas during the average flight, and pleading with Delta to say there's some sort of fart filter on board. That number is, in fact, a little bloated. Bam. It comes from this non-scientific study by The Sun last year, and it's their guess at how much gas that 525 passengers on a fully loaded Airbus A380 would pass in total during a 13-hour flight. Still, the visual of 13 cubic feet of pure fart is an arresting one. So anyway, the article continues, and they talk about the fact that the representative from Delta Airlines says, well, airplanes have these filters, and there's a certain percentage of the air that is what would be the
circulated?
Recirculated.
No,
yes.
it's introduced into the system.
Yes. So it depends on the airplane. The airplane that Dana and I fly, most of the air is not recirculated. There's a percentage of it that is, but there are some more modern airplanes that have a higher volume of air that is recirculated, but it goes through some filtering systems, etc. But I think that the best way to handle this sort of situation, I think, is for people to wear the kind of underwear that has a fart filter inside of it. Hang on.
Shreddies are underwear designed to filter those unpleasant odors when you let rip. So if you suffer from flatulence and want to keep the air fresh, these are definitely for you.
And to do the testing for us, we thought we'd bring in a professional. In fact,
You gotta watch this
professional, the
video.
only flatulist in the world, Mr. Methane. Welcome to our studio.
Hello, Rachel. Hello, Jason.
Great to meet you, Mal.
Thank you for giving me the opening, so to speak.
If you could just squeeze into these, please.
Squeeze into them,
My new
okay,
friend.
okay.
They are small, but
oh, they're
stretchy.
small, aren't they? Right,
So-
okay. Hell, right. They're like cycling shorts.
putting these shorts
They're
on.
nice and
good, though,
tight
man.
To stop the air escaping.
Shreddies use an activated carbon panel made from charcoal treated with oxygen to absorb and trap the odours from flatulence.
I'm quite impressed with these because normally
Now
you get these things
he's
that look
laying
like
out a
incontinence
cushion
nappies, and
on a
these are
table,
quite stylish.
They are very stylish.
Yeah, I could
and now
take a
he's
day
lying
out
down on the
with these
table,
just after.
and
Maybe
in a
not do that
very
on a date, though. Just
interesting
I'll try
pose.
not to.
He is
Well, Jason, the
Expelling.
idea is let's just stop the smell.
3, 2, 1.
You got to watch the video.
Oh,
Jason, you're down the right end to test whether the
how we doing,
pants
Jason?
have actually filtered.
There's no odour whatsoever.
Wow.
No odour at all.
Maybe a little
Nothing.
bit. Maybe.
Nothing.
No.
No.
Oh, we've done it. Yeah.
So there you go, Shreddies, and I think they're not the only brand of carbon filter lined undergarments that you can wear to filter your gaseous
Expulations.
Expulsions.
Yes,
expulsions.
expulsions.
I was
Yeah,
going to say
I
I was going to
I was
use a
gonna say
different
output.
word, but I thought, no, I can't because I'm going to have to. Yeah.
Output. Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know. Raise your hand if you've never broken wind on an aircraft.
Oh
before.
yeah, I mean,
Never.
No.
Well, how about in a lift?
In a lift,
Yeah.
as in the thing that takes you up and down floors in a building, or in
Yeah,
the car
all
service
right,
that
and
takes
it's-
you from point A to point B.
No,
Okay, how
up and down
about
a building
How about those of you who have been on a date?
elevator?
On a date.
Ah, look, I tell you, you've got to find the clip of Billy Connolly, the famous Scottish comedian, talking about trying to get down with his girlfriend in the cinema, realizing he needed to break wind, and then he didn't want to do it beside her, so he had to rush off to the toilet, and in doing so, he had to pass in front of 20 people on the same row. And he said, well, you don't ever point your genitals at someone like that when you're trying to squeeze past, do you? So you point your bum at them. And he said, of course. Anyway, it's a very, very funny piece. So he also mentions the Darling royal family, who I love very much, and how they've all had a special operation to prevent them doing this because they don't.
Really?
It's called a
that would be-
fartendectomy.
Could be worse. Could be
I
Dutch
have
oven.
more to add to this conversation, but I'm not going to. Maybe I'll do a crew log on it because I haven't done one in a very long time.
Yes,
it will be
you
the
need
most
to.
inappropriate crew log ever submitted. But
Oh, and that would be the most popular one ever, too.
Absolutely.
it has absolutely nothing to do with aviation.
That doesn't matter.
And it's a little bit of a product review. It's a little bit of a product review. We'll say that.
Okay.
Yes.
Please
Some
do
beans
stuff.
first.
We'll have more Patreons than we can shake a stick at if we do that.
I actually have a photograph of. Remember Gary Donato? We've had him on the show. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I have a photograph of him taking the oxygen mask out of the holder and putting it on his face because it was so
Because
Well,
of you?
Because of me.
Dana.
Lovely, lovely.
Dana,
Speaking of
Dana,
output,
Dana.
I think one of the puppies here is trying to tell me that it is his turn to participate.
Well,
and I'm going to be right back.
go do that. We'll
Actually, might be a
continue.
good time for a good potty break.
Okay.
Hey.
It's a technical pause.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we can all go and break wind.
Yes.
Since we were talking about it.
Why not? Sorry. We had to talk about it, and then that just made everybody go, oh, maybe I should do some kind of a physiological break. I'm going to be here and entertain you, dear people in the chat room. Matthew says, I need a fart filter in my helicopter. Yeah, that was a very cute little segment on whatever British show that was. Something about geek something or other. But anyway, that'll be in the show notes for you if you want to watch it. Okay, let's see. What are we going to talk about next? Looks like number 5. We're not doing very well here, are we, Liz? We have, what, 35 minutes, 35, 40 minutes remaining? So many items to cover and so little time. How's everybody doing in the chat room?
What's that? Are we on a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
You created a break.
Sorry. Successful doggy Delta P.
Max Flight. I can't believe I'm now texting Vanderhoof about fart absorbing underwear. It's a real
You're welcome,
thing,
Max. And David.
Yes.
You're both welcome.
Only this is something that you would never talk about on your show.
No.
For good reason.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll tackle the I don't know. I don't have the right adjective for those topics.
Hey Max, are you gonna finally make it to Oshkosh this year? You have a really good reason to, because there's going to be a lot of APGers over there, and you're going to want to hang with us. You have no excuse not to.
Mm-hmm.
Never will.
I think he's
I'm sure
referring to
responding to
discussing
something
those things.
else.
No, he's
Yeah.
referring to discussing those topics on his very
Oh
classic
yeah,
show.
yeah, yeah.
They're definitely never going to
I'm
discuss.
kind of sorry we were discussing it on this show, but
No, we're not.
no, we're not. This is what we do.
Go for that
It's the entertainment value.
lowbrow entertainment for sure. True, man.
Sun and fun. Oh, you're going to Sun and Fun. That's cool.
Nice.
Does Truman know he's in a sort of documentary, a permanent documentary?
Both of
his
my
life?
dogs are oblivious.
Oh, okay.
We have Exhibit A, Taco.
You know what happens when Truman finds out?
You're talking about the movie Truman with Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, yeah. Well, no, he will probably always be blissfully unaware of that.
You know, there's a
Not
lot to
much
be
for-
said about being blissfully unaware. I kind of like my
Ignorance is bliss.
blissful ignorance kind of philosophy.
He does watch the television a little bit, especially if there's animals making noises on the TV. He's very interested in that.
So Gabriel solar car? No, I don't do the.
Flight sim.
I don't have anything against PC simming, but you know, since I do this thing for a living, no, I don't.
Hey, Gabriel, I used to a long time at Solar Car. That's right.
Yeah.
Is his name?
Yeah, that's Gabriel.
Okay. I used
He's
to
in
flight sim.
Canada.
Mm-hmm. I used to sim all the time, but once I became a pilot, I pretty much stopped it all.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Jeff. Last thing I want to see on my days off is an airplane or an airport.
The last thing I want to do on my days off is like do anything related to aviation. Oh,
damn.
Damn.
No, this is related to sound production and podcasting.
That's right. It's just the aviation thing is just an excuse or reason or whatever.
Just the vehicle.
The vehicle. Yeah. I really don't know anything about aviation, honestly, which is probably obvious. Okay.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Reagan writes in, says, there are not many good outcomes for a plane at the end of its life, but come on, poor bird. This would be a little too eerie for me. Have a great day. Reagan from Chico, California. Ooh, the home of
Sierra Nevada.
Sierra Nevada. So he sends a link to the CNN.
The mountains?
No, the
Sierra
brewing
Nevada.
company.
Brewing company.
Oh,
Yes.
brewing company.
Yes.
Also,
I just wanted
Mills
to,
River, North Carolina.
I just want
Yeah.
to sound. I want to sound ditzy for 1 second, so that's perfect.
Ah, okay. But it is a mountain range. That's true. And it was that many thousands of years before Sierra Nevada Brewing Company.
Now, if this was not Bahrain, no, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Oh no, go ahead. We want to hear your insight. Tell us what it is that we're talking about here, Dana.
Well, it's right up my alley. Another little side thing that I like to do is scuba dive, and the good use of a old aircraft that is put to use as a artificial reef under the water, as a dive exhibit for an attraction for divers to come dive. But it's all the way over in Bahrain.
Well, just make a trip to Bahrain.
Field
I
trip.
mean, how long could that take?
Oh,
Probably
far. I mean, I'm freaking out about going away in a month. And
To
being on an
Hawaii?
airplane for 10 hours. I'm freaking out about it.
Yeah, double that at least to get over
No,
to
no.
At least.
No?
Bahrain?
No? 15?
Well, from Atlanta, maybe 14, 15.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be telling the world I'm going away.
Oh yeah.
I think you've already told us.
Let me give his address so you can.
Nope. Don't do that, please.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so this article to which we were referring is the Persian Gulf country of Bahrain is hoping to attract divers from around the globe, like Dana, with a new underwater theme park, an expansive diving site spanning 100,000 square meters with some unusual features. What's the most unusual feature? Well, it's a sunken Boeing 747. Okay, Nick, your turn.
I can't think of a better use.
Oh, there it is, folks. We knew that was,
There
Far
it
be
is.
it from me.
that was the tee up.
Yeah, so they're using a Boeing 747 as an artificial reef.
You do know, Nick, why they're using a 747, not an Airbus, correct?
Well,
Because it's far more durable.
Better.
No, because it's far more durable. It will hold up to
No.
me under the water, unlike an
No, it won't.
Airbus.
No, it won't. It'll collapse into a heap of rubbish in
Okay.
Not likely.
10 years.
Well, we better
I
get out
promise
there to
you.
dive it before that happens. What do you think, Data?
I think so.
All right. There you go.
Actually, that would be a great trip. If you want
Hey,
to go,
there's
Dana.
There's a picture here. If you scroll down of
There's some
some
great
Airbuses.
pictures.
different aircraft types being turned into
Yeah. So
Different
being
things.
repurposed.
it's not just the Boeings that are being used as artificial reefs or other things. Looks like Airbuses are used as well. Looks like a
Yeah.
A300
Well,
that I see in one of these.
I listened to a fabulous documentary podcast the other day, all about the structures underneath the oil rigs that are just off the Californian coast, and how they promised that they were going to get rid of all these oil rigs. That's quite a posh area of around LA. What would that be? Really expensive houses looking over the coast.
Oh, like
Promised
Malibu
around that area, I would
or
guess.
Laguna. Laguna
Yeah.
Beach.
But the wildlife people are now saying, "Oh, hang on, the structures underneath these oil rigs have become a habitat for thousands of endangered species. They're incredibly rich in sea life. So no, you can't possibly get rid of them. So what do you do then?
I
Just
don't know.
Let them be.
I don't
Eventually
know.
they'll disintegrate, and I don't know. Maybe
So these man-made reefs are common and can be very useful for for sea life.
Indeed.
I'm not quite sure what they're going to do with all those seat buckles, though. What the hell? I mean, you say all those
Have you
pictures
ever-
of things.
Have you ever been to like an aviation scrapyard where everything's like piled up by part, basically? So you get like a bunch of like seat cushions or like, seat buckles or just doors, like a line of doors. It's weird. I don't know what they do
these
with it.
airplanes might have just been repurposed and not all these things. Not
They
necessarily
probably do
turned into
reuse
reefs.
some of those or recycle some of those things.
All right, that's enough of that. Let's move on to number
Okay.
6. Anthony has concern about Bluetooth. He says,
"Oh, you use your toothbrush more often." And
yeah, that would be green tooth.
That would. Oh, well, okay.
Sounds like
could
a
be.
root canal coming up.
Oh, don't suck your pen. That gives you Bluetooth.
There was a discussion about GPS receivers, and it was suggested that there were some external receivers that connected via Bluetooth that might improve reception in the cabin. I've been on several flights over the past year, mostly Air Canada, I believe. Let me try that again. Air Canada. Wow. Why is it so hard for me to say?
Air
Mostly
Canada?
Air Canada.
Canadian sound.
Air Canada. Where
That's
we
the
were
one.
expressly warned as part of the briefing that mobile sending and receiving functions had to be disabled, but more particularly that absolutely no Bluetooth devices such as headphones or keyboards could be used. The issue, of course, is that for Bluetooth to connect, on one side of that conversation has to be transmitting. That seems to be the part that causes concern. Does anyone know whether Bluetooth really presents a risk? And this is from Anthony Tibbs. And I think that early on when we were introducing all these electronic devices into airplane cabins, that they specifically, at least my airline, said, oh, if you have a noise reduction headset, you can't have the Bluetooth on. I think that's gone by the wayside. And I don't think that's something that's a restriction on, I know it's not a restriction on Acme, and probably not.
Within the past 2 years, any commercial flight I've taken on a number of different airlines, no one has asked for the Bluetooth, for Bluetooth settings to be turned off on any type of device. And I actually usually do use Bluetooth headphones now, and no one has ever asked me to turn them off or stop using them.
I don't think it's a risk, honestly.
Even our electronic flight bags, which are, in my case, an iPad, when you hit the flight mode, it does not turn off the Bluetooth. So the Bluetooth and also the Wi-Fi continues to transmit. It only turns off the telephone cellular radio portion. No, I don't think it, personally, I don't think it represents a risk. But of course, you have to respect the policy of the airline you're flying with.
Sure. If asked to turn it off, no problem.
That's a rule.
Follow
Do
the
it.
instructions.
Yep. Whether it makes any difference or not, that's the rule. I agree. So you're good to go with the Bluetooth unless you're flying on an airline that says don't use it. Thank you, Anthony, for that. Mark writes in, pertaining to Larry's feedback flying with the gear down, throughout the whole conversation, I kept thinking, wouldn't there be a landing gear overspeed warning? And none of you guys brought that up at all. It's hard for me to believe that on a modern commercial airliner, there would be no oral voice alarm or visual warning light besides the normal gear down light that would warn you that you're flying too fast with the gear down. Is this true? Are there no other warnings except the normal gear down light? Mark Filet Altergott is who asks the question. And as far as I know, I don't think any airplane I've ever flown on has any kind of a warning system that lets you know that you have your gear down and you're going too fast, because it should be really, really obvious. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I had a good look through all the warning list on my in my manuals, and I could not find one for leaving the gear down. A bunch for forgetting to put them down.
Put it down. Yes.
Yeah, but nothing to warn you or remind you to bring them up.
Even small general aviation aircraft with retractable gear typically have warning to let you know that if you're flying low and slow, that if you have not put your gear down, usually makes kind of a high pitch, really annoying noise, and you know immediately, oh yes, no, I don't have the gear down. But never for putting the gear up if you've forgotten to do that. But it does make a lot of noise.
In my experience, there's so much darn noise with the gear down and you're going really fast that you can't really think straight. And you don't even, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, think of it. Even when we start accelerating with the wing landing lights out there, how annoying that gets. That's a reminder, just like the landing gear would be a reminder. You know, when you have them down, it stays very noisy, very annoying, and it's almost like its own reminder to pull them up. So not going to forget it.
And unless you're in the middle, yes.
Sorry, of interest, the hydraulics to our gear is disabled 30 knots above the maximum speed.
Oh,
so that on a lot of aircraft, I know the 747, for example, when you've got the gear up, you can then put the handle into a kind of a neutral position, which isolates the hydraulics to prevent it accidentally coming down again, unless you want it to come down. Well, on ours, it just happens automatically on an airspeed switch. The hydraulics to the gear is isolated at 280 knots.
Do you know what our maximum retraction speed is, Jeff?
Maximum retract?
I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty mean.
It's two different speeds. I'll give you a hint: 250 and 300.
Okay.
Retractions maximums 250.
250 and 300.
Extension.
Yeah, but it's really noisy if you put them out at 300 knots.
Yeah, very noisy.
But and in our airplane, Dana, we don't go. I mean, the Boeings, as Nick just mentioned, you go up and then you go to the center position off to remove any hydraulic pressure to the uplock mechanism of the because the uplocks are there in gravity mode and they're gonna keep the gear from coming down. But the Mad Dog, I guess the pressure stays on the whole time.
It does. It's a positive pressure system.
Yeah. But I guess the answer to the question is that, there's no warning system that lets you know that what's funny is Dana and I, and maybe Nick can relate to this as well, is that sometimes if you're in the simulator and you have something going on, and you can too, Steph?
Well, I was with you for that specific occurrence.
Really?
But you were watching, I think, myself and Captain Al. But anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah. So there are times when something else is going on that distracts you from what is going on with your gear system. And I know that I can say I've seen this several times in the simulator. You have like an engine failure or something like that. Something happens that distracts you from the normal routine positive rate gear up thing. And you're flying along and you're thinking, why is the airplane acting so sluggishly? Why is it not accelerating? Why is it so noisy? And it's usually in the simulator, because a lot of the time in the simulator, you don't have the same noise that you would have in the airplane to kind of give you those cues. And then finally you get to the point where you're coming in for a landing and you go, okay, gear down. And then somebody reaches for the gear handle.
And it's already down.
The gear handle's already down.
Yeah.
And go, ooh.
Ouch.
In the real world, it'd be a lot more obvious.
Yes, it's more obvious in the real world, but in the simulator, I mean, you've probably seen that, Dana, in the simulator. Not that you did it, but probably
I've never done that
did.
before ever. Nope.
Yeah.
None of us have. Definitely none of us have.
People have told me that happens. Not me, of course. I would never do that. Yeah.
And definitely never happened with a bunch of other, pilots watching and the sim instructor and no one realizing it.
Yeah.
Never happens.
No,
Never happens.
It could not possibly happen, Steph. Let's see here. Andrew writes in. He's from Andrew from Huntsville. Oh, I had a nice Korean dinner with Andrew. I lost comms in the helicopter once and had to have my passenger Google the correct squawk code because, like these guys, I'd forgotten and didn't want to make everyone think I'd been hijacked. I suppose this is a little that's a nice thing about a helicopter. You can probably still have cellular reception and you can Google it. You know, the rest of us, we normally can't. Anyway, he says, I suppose this is a little reminder that our knowledge as pilots, especially low timers like me, is perishable and we should always be learning. Oh, so true. We're always learning. Even those of us who have flown for 30 or 40 years, we're still learning. He relates to an aviationsafety.net article. An Aeroflot flight 1515, a Boeing 737-800, made an emergency landing at an airport in Russia after a passenger attempted to hijack the aircraft. The flight had departed Surgut at 9:55 UTC while en route to Moscow at flight level 340. A passenger claiming to be armed ordered the flight crew to divert to Afghanistan. At 10:22 UTC, the pilots squawked 7600, lost communication squawk, on their transponder. The aircraft landed safely at Khonti-Mansisk at 11:17 UTC. After landing, security forces stormed the plane and detained the man. He was in a state of intoxication. He was not armed. But how did they know that they were being hijacked? Because they were using the 7600 squawk, which is lost comm, not hijacking. Maybe they were able to.
Nice job.
Yeah, maybe they were able to like convey that on the radio or something. Yeah?
Maybe.
Because I'm surprised that they knew to storm the plane and detain a man.
Yeah, they must have still been communicating despite their
figured
squawk
out
code.
It's not
of
a
lost
lost
comms.
comm.
No. You want the one that's for
I don't know.
Anyway.
I mean, there's only 3 emergency
There's
squawk
3.
codes. It's not beyond
that's
the
just
wit
too
of man
much.
to remember.
No. But here's the thing about that. You know, it's one of those things that I can see where people have a problem with it because they are close to one another. So if you don't have a good way to remember it, it might be difficult to do. I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt because
do you have a way, Steph, to remember?
I do.
Okay. What?
So if you're having an emergency at 7700, so 7700, the second number is the one that changes in all of these. So the 7, if you think about what the number 7 looks like, it has a straight line and then it goes down. So that means we're going down. Right, 7700. Crashing.
Okay.
7600. The 6 is the one that changes. That's your lost comms. If you turn the 6 around, it kind of looks like a microphone.
Alrighty then.
7500.
Yeah.
The 5 is kind of this squiggly, all over the place.
Yeah.
That's your hijacking. Like we're all over the place.
I love that.
You won't forget it.
No. Yeah.
No, I won't forget it for now.
Okay.
But as someone who sometimes has trouble with things like that, where there are a series of numbers or a series of images or a series of ideas that are somewhat closely related, but with very distinct meanings, occasionally I get hung up on those. So I can understand where that happens to people.
So I'm the kind of guy that we have all these acronyms and like things, all these letters stand for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember the acronym. Or if I do remember the acronym, I don't
you can't remember the original.
Yeah, doesn't work for me.
Exactly. Yeah. But I that one's always stuck with me. So, and I can take no credit for thinking that up. I did not come up with that.
Thank God.
I'm not sure who did, but my very first flight instructor taught it to me.
Would have disappeared into a bucket, Steph, if you thought of that.
I think it's great. I'm going to stand by it.
It is awesome.
All right.
Well, Dee says 75, a guy with a knife. It doesn't really rhyme, but 76, need a radio fix. That's pretty good. 77, going to heaven.
That works too. I like that one.
Okay.
It's just a 75 guy with a knife. It would be a knife. Guy with a knife. What's a knife?
75 guy with a knife.
75.
You got to
guy
use
with
your
a knife.
imagination
Oh, I like
here. A
that,
little bit
yeah.
of creativity, Nick. A little bit of creativity.
Well, actually, the RKO correct pronunciation
Five.
of 5 is 5.
Five. Yep.
Correct.
Nine.
Well done.
Nine or five.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. See, I've already
Well,
helped out
hello
at
there,
least one of
APG.
our listeners.
Well,
Sorry.
hello there,
Sorry.
Sorry. I didn't know you were gonna play.
Go away. Who's
I'll
that bloke
stop
saying hello?
HR,
Shut
we're starting
up.
to lose control. HR, calling HR, we're losing control.
Okay.
I'm the one who's responsible for that loss. of
I know,
control.
I
I'll
know.
stop. Okay, I'm done.
Well, hello there, APG crew, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Captain Dana, and of course, the lovely Dr. Steph. This is Gustav from Sweden calling in with some voice feedback. And as always, I would like to start by saying thank you for your work and for everything that you do in producing such an amazing podcast every week. I'm so grateful for it, and it makes a big difference in my life. My first question is related to management and leadership, because as pilots, you are managers and you are leaders. And I hear Captain Dana talk about setting the tone in the cockpit every now and then. I find this concept quite interesting, especially since I'm a manager and a leader too. And I've been reflecting on my own leadership and how I set the tone among my coworkers. And now I would be very interested to hear if you could elaborate a little bit more about this concept of setting the tone, how you work with setting the tone in your cockpit, and how you create a good atmosphere in the cockpit, and what you do to do it, and how you deal with someone that perhaps doesn't have that good tone. I think that would be really interesting to hear. And then secondly, I'm a Formula One fan, just like Captain Jeff. So I was wondering if Captain Jeff has a favorite Formula One team and a favorite Formula One driver. Anyway, thank you so much for everything you do, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Gustav, for the question regarding setting the tone in the cockpit. Tone. As far, I'll answer the Formula One thing first. I'm still new to Formula One, and everything seems to be like really changing rapidly between last season and this next season. But I've always been partial to rooting for the British, unfortunately, driver Lewis Hamilton, the Mercedes team. He seems to be an awfully talented young man, and I'm always impressed with that. And I also like the Haas team, which is the only American Formula One team. I don't think they have any American drivers at this point, but so I know, again, things are really changing pretty rapidly, and that's all I can say is that I like Lewis Hamilton. And
I'd love the Williams team to get back into it. They used to be such a fantastic team, and they've really fallen by the wayside.
Yeah,
But,
they have.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is unfortunate. Do they have any good hopes for? I know that things are being jostled about. I mean, Raikkonen is with Renault now this year, and what's the Australian driver's name? I can't think of his name now. All of a sudden, and the guy that smiles all the time. What a great guy. He left.
Oh yeah, I know the chap.
Didn't he leave
That chap.
Red Bull for another team? I think.
Can't remember. Sorry.
Anyway, so I don't know. I'm still new, and I am, but I'm excited about the upcoming 2019 Formula One series. So now setting the tone. Dana, you're the one that talked about that.
Managing expectations, managing what people really think about you, think about the operation, how things are going to go. You've got some people out there that want to be, that don't really communicate well with others, whether it be the ramp controller or the ramp rampers or the gate agents or the flight attendants or the passengers. So by managing the expectations, including how you interact and talk with your fellow crew member in the flight deck as well. So if you get on the airplane and you set that tone early, that you're somebody that you can communicate with, approach, that, not to be afraid to speak up and let me know what you're thinking, when you're thinking it, how you're thinking it, because, one of the things I say, and I say it in a joking way, but I'm actually serious about it, and that is that what I would like to do is never be on the media. I don't want to be a Captain Sully. I don't want to go talk to the FAA. I don't want to talk to the chief pilot's office. I don't want to fill out paperwork. Well, I say it jokingly in a way that really kind of sets tone. But whatever we do up here, it's between two pilots, and we're going to work through it, and we're going to make sure we have a safe operation. And I'm not going to sit here and be a negative Nelly. We're going to enjoy flying together and try to be, set that positive tone. That's when I say tone, you hear me say positive tone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with my flight attendants in the back. Hey, listen, I'm here for you guys. Let me know what you need. If there's whatever we can do. And, of course, flight attendants I'm finding are a little more tricky sometimes to deal with, because they get on and they want this, they want that. This is broken. This doesn't work. And sometimes you just have to be a little more diplomatic with them. But as long as they know that you're on their side, and if you have any passenger service issues, I'm watching out for you as far as turbulence. If I haven't called, one part of my briefing is I actually say, if it gets real turbulent, I haven't called you because I didn't know about it yet. So please don't call up and yell at me, because I'm kind of throwing a joke out there at it. And they really see that I'm being serious about it in a joking way. That part of the briefing is I'm going to try to call you and try to give you a heads up, and your safety is my primary concern up here. So that's what I mean by tone, by being a good proactive leader and showing that I care about the individual person, I care about the operation, and that I want to be the positive guy on the flight deck that is embracing everybody's individuality, what they bring to the crew, and hopefully, and ultimately, what I say to each one of my crew members is our job is to support the customers in the back, because that's why we're here.
Right. And this is one of the best jobs in the world, in my opinion. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be having a good time unless there's some kind of a weather or mechanical issue that's causing us, stress. But let's make this a fun experience and be open to communication for the entire crew, that we're a team, that we're going to do this together, and we're going to have fun doing it if we can. And also, I like to say, it's not, it's not a mistake until both of us make it. So there's a reason that we're flying not by ourselves, but with other people. And if I'm doing something that is not right, please let me know, because I don't like the paperwork.
That's right.
Craig, First Officer Craig in the chat room says, no drama, no paperwork equal great trip plus great crew equal fantastic trip. So true.
And I say, I'm going to enjoy myself because I've only got 150 days left.
Well, I only have 1,782 days.
10,000.
6,000. 6,042 days. Don't remind me.
So let's keep moving. Great question. Thank you, Gustav. And thank you so much for your kind words regarding our show. And you know what? We feel the same way about you and everyone else out there that is listening to our show. I mean, we may mean a lot to you, but you all mean even more to us.
And Gustav asked one other thing there, Jeff, that I wanted to address, and that's how do you deal with somebody that's just not, you're not getting the buy-in, and that is
throw them off the trip.
Throw them off the trip. No, I mean, the reality is if you approach everything properly in the way that I know that you like to approach it, and from flying with a lot of captains like yourself, and I'm also a former manager, customer service manager. I've been around a long time. So what I found is the best way that you can promote good employees is by treating them well, even if you don't necessarily get along with them, and or if you think they have a bad attitude, all you choose to do is focus on the positive things, focus on the good things. And if you do that, then a lot of times you break them out of that negativity. And sometimes you just can't do that, and you're not going to be able to convince them otherwise. But you're only working with them for 3 or 4 days or 2 days or whatever it is. As long as you work together, is two people, as you just said, in the flight deck. As long as we don't make a mistake, it's not a mistake at all.
I've really found that if somebody is negative and they start complaining about things, and I don't play, and they pick up on that right away, and they go, okay, this guy's not going to be a Debbie Downer, and it just makes all the difference in the world. That as long as you don't play along with their negative feelings about everything, that seems to work out for me anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't propagate it. Correct.
Yeah. Quickly, I think we're close to the end of the show here, getting close to the 3-hour point. Chuck writes in. He said, "Hi, it's Chuck, the glider pilot from West Virginia. You all have inspired me to do a podcast about soaring. You can find it on iTunes and most podcast apps. I'm still very new at this, so hopefully the show will improve with each episode. Keep up the great work on the Airline Pilot Guy show. Hope to see you all this year at Oshkosh." And then he sent a link to his show on iTunes. I have a little snippet of the intro to his show. So let me play that.
Hi, I'm Chuck, and welcome to Soaring the Sky. Whether you're a pilot or an aviation enthusiast, or you're just curious about aviation and sailplanes, thanks for joining us today. Coming up today, I do have a special guest.
There you go. A little bit of his
great.
intro. Yeah.
Very
Great.
nice.
So check out Chuck Fulton's Soaring the Sky, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes, because we're all about promoting everyone out there that is putting out a podcast.
Absolutely, Jeff. But I'm a bit confused. I've sawn logs and I've sawn down a tree. I've never sawn the sky. What's that about?
SOAR, soar. Am I mispronouncing?
You have a hard time hearing R's.
Soar.
Soaring.
It's a glider pilot.
Well, I'm going to start listening to that, because when I retire, I might well take up gliding again. Something I haven't done since I was like 18 years old. So that could be a good podcast for me.
Yeah. I can just see it now. Nick is going to start a new podcast.
He's going to leave us.
He's going to join a new
jump
podcast.
ship to
he's going to go to
Soaring the Sky.
Sorry.
No, I don't think so. No, I'm mainly going to go if you kick me out.
No, we're not going to kick you out.
That might happen too. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's HR right there. I have nothing to do with that.
Sharp as a tack, that girl.
Beyond my control.
Hey, Jeff, give you my official notice. 365 will be my last one. So see you.
Okay.
Wow, this has suddenly become a very.
You want to do that while we're actually recording a show, Dana? Wow. Okay.
All right, it's official now. Then
love you.
Yeah. Okay. With that, we have some more great pieces of feedback in our feedback folder, but not good enough for doing it on the show today.
Oh, wow.
We've run out of time.
So good, in fact, that you'll be first the next time around.
That's right. So we have Tillman, our great friend in Berlin.
we love
provides us with the bottomless tankards of beer,
which I have used. And
I have
so
not.
have
I know, Steph.
Well, you've missed out.
Dana and I
Great
have not
beer.
yet. Dana and I will have to make a trip to Berlin and take advantage of that. We have David with some feedback. JJ Pittsburgh, which is not his real name. Raymond has a question about winglets and a great letter. And I was hoping to do that on this show, Nick, but we'll have to move it to the next one. Flight attendant's open letter to a rude passenger goes viral.
That's a great letter, that one.
Yeah. So we're going to have all that and more. Your feedback, if you want to send it to us, feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. Use the app. There's a great way to send us feedback that way as well. And on the website, airlinepilotguy.com, you can use the speak pipe feature,
And let's see what else I was going to say. I just remembered something regarding our app. Oh, I have submitted a new version of both Android and iOS apps. I think the Android version is actually available out there if you are one of those Android users for the new version of the Airline Pilot Guy app. And not sure what's going on with the iOS thing, but hopefully that will be out soon as well. And let's see. We are also on social media. You really need to follow us on social media so you can figure out what we're doing.
Please do. You can head over to twitter.com and follow us using the handle @APGcrew. We're all there if you want to interact with one of us individually. Our individual Twitter information is pinned to the top of that page. And you can also head over to facebook.com/airline pilot guy. Lots of good community interaction there, lots of articles being shared, some information about meetups, pretty much anything you can think of. So definitely join us. We look forward to seeing you.
And Hillel manages our APG Slack team.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share ideas and news. We suggest episode and Playing Tales topics. We plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled HI11E1, Hotel India 11 Echo 1. And see you in Slack.
And major kudos to our producer, assistant, and just all around great woman.
Our favorite
Liz,
Canadian.
Our favorite Canadian. And she's already doing work. I can see some of the things changing already on Evernote, the things that we're not covering on today's show. She's already moving to the next folder for the next show. So she's awesome. Thank you, Liz, for all that. And thank you all for listening to the show, for reviewing the show on iTunes and downloading it and listening to it and just being part of our awesome APG community. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
So long. Go Pats.
That's over. So long.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Outfitters and goodbye. Yeah,
No.
Thanks for all the fish.
I did figure out how to just fix the time in Google Calendar. You can add the correct time zone so it shows up correctly. It's an option when you create the event. So I have fixed the time for my meetup because otherwise it would have been.
I guess the other way to do it is that we could just make it like an all-day thing, and then just as part of the title, actually put the time.
Put the time in. You could do that too.
That's probably another good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I'll
I
just
have
put it
not
in the
done.
notes too, just in case. But whatever.
I tend to make mine all day events, but I think what happened was the event was actually put in by the fine chap that's coming along.
I see.
And he obviously put it in on his time. And when I brought my phone back home, it converted it to my time.
Yes, I have that problem
So
frequently
it
with.
5 hours. It's 5 hours and flipped it over the next day.
I have that problem with my flights, like international flights. When they're in the calendar, the time is incorrect frequently. I mean, it's correct, but just not for the time zone I'm in.
Correct, which is annoying in the extreme.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
I
very good.
see.
We've lost Jeff. He's disappeared.
Herr Jeffrey.
I think he went to the party.
The loo.
Probably.
Oh, right.
How do we do it, Max? I don't know. We
He's going for a piss.
I don't know if we enjoy the company of one another quite that much, but we certainly like to talk.
I don't like to talk at all.
No, seriously, 3 hours goes by so fast. I'm not even sure how it happens.
Is it 3 hours yet?
How the hell we kept it to an hour in the old days, I do not know.
No idea. Or even 2 hours.
Particularly,
Just doesn't seem like enough time.
particularly with Miami Rick, who used to go on for
He could talk for 30 minutes by himself about one topic.
single subject. Yep.
Yeah, a single technical subject.
Yeah, and
about
every time
one
he
small
did
part of an
something he
airplane.
thought the people didn't quite understand, he'd go back to basics on that bit as well. It's
Exactly.
always so funny.
That's good. We miss you, Rick. If you're
We do.
listening,
We do.
come back.
I never.
And we loved you, and we still do.
Indeed.
Yes, Rick. So I don't think that the guy that you're talking about actually made any kind of a change or whatever to, because I think that only the 5 of us have, and Hillel have the ability to make any changes on the APG calendar.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You have to be, yeah.
Well, I'm just
one of us.
You must have made it when you were in New York, the event.
Yeah, and then it just because
Possibly.
it saw you in
Yeah.
New York and then moved it to the, I don't know.
That might be the case.
I don't know. This whole time zone thing with the Google Calendar is confusing to me. So that just makes me think maybe from
Just
now
make things
on,
an
just
all-day
make it
event.
like all-day events, and then just put the time in the.
It's really not
title.
difficult to choose the right time zone, though, if you
Yeah.
are so inclined. You just have to, it's just an additional
And don't
option.
forget, after 115 days, I don't give a poop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you do. Come on.
You care.
You care.
We know you care.
You're
still going to
yeah.
be over here for meetups. I know that much.
Max, I'm so
Well,
glad
yeah,
that
but
you
I'll
were
be-
able to watch the live show. It's always nice to have podcasting greatness with us.
Indeed.
Oh, God,
Podcast
yes.
royalty.
Absolutely.
We are not worthy. We are not worthy.
As the PTUK guys would say, podcast royalty.
Yes. Yes.
Very true.
But what else were you guys talking about while I was physiologically
All good things about you.
relieving? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I had the speaker
We're
on. so
commenting how neatly.
I
combed
did.
your
I don't
hairs.
remember hearing any of that actually. But
You must.
maybe,
I think you were just preoccupied.
Hearing tested.
maybe the pee in the toilet was making so much noise I couldn't hear all that.
Yeah. At least you got good flow.
Good flow. I do have good flow still.
3,000 psi at least, I would hope.
I'm not sure of 3,000, but yeah, never put a pressure
This is
gauge
a
on it.
podcast about aviation.
What's
Yeah,
the Mad Dog
3,000
pressure?
psi.
Yeah.
It's, sounds like a reasonable hydraulic pressure for some system. I don't
Ooh,
know.
a large GNT will hopefully suffice. Ooh,
Sounds good.
yes.
I've sworn out off drinking. Part of what I didn't put in that whole thing is what happened after the Super Bowl.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I got to know the food truck vendors over at the Patriot, the tailgate party, and also the folks over there at Scofflaw Brewing.
Mhm.
I know you guys know that. And so Saturday hung out around there all afternoon or evening. Got to know them. And then Sunday we went there pregame. It was pretty slow. Ate some really good food. Had a couple of drinks before winning the game. Nothing obviously to get too numb or just enjoyment. But it was pretty slow. They went over there afterwards and they had shut down. We were hoping to get some food and a couple of drinks afterwards. Well, all the food trucks have been shut down, and they ended up coming out with Scofflaw had a 5-gallon bucket of margarita mix.
Wow.
Margaritas pre-made that they brought out. Then they brought out all their beers. Then they brought out all the leftover alcohol. Yeah, it took me until this afternoon to feel good because I was
Never
completely-
drinking again.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just
How many times have we
Until
said that?
tomorrow.
yeah, not this week for sure.
I'm never gonna do that again.
I get
And
it.
then a few days later, I'm never
Wow.
gonna.
Never
I
doing that.
gained 9 pounds in one weekend,
Uh-oh.
and that was just from drinking because I didn't eat a whole lot.
Yikes.
So between
And-
yesterday
and
and this,
what's the
since-
problem?
There's a big problem. But that was amazingly bad.
You know, I seem to remember that on our retreat in September, we consumed a lot.
We consumed a
responsible.
reasonable number.
Yeah, it was
Very
all
Alcohol.
non-alcoholic
you guys,
beer.
yes,
Reasonable.
you guys did.
Those of us who are not in charge of driving or
Just like
And the skipper.
episode 200 in
Piloting.
Miami,
we definitely
consumed
only
a
consumed a reasonable number
amount.
of alcoholic beverages.
Yeah,
I
like-
don't think I've ever had that much to drink in 2 or 3
I
days.
was
in my
fine.
life. Well, of course you were.
Well, just stay tuned to Oshkosh, where we don't have to move anywhere.
That's right. There will be no driving involved.
It'd be a mess.
That's going to be a rough one.
There might need to be some training involved before we get there. From our river.
Just find the nearest aircraft wing and sleep under it.
Just
Nick, I've actually done that in Oshkosh.
Excellent.
You don't have to, Nick. We have a nice motorhome that you can stay in.
Yeah. Well, I hate making a mess in my motorhome.
Well, you can't make a mess in the motorhome.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Really?
Yes.
No, you cannot.
I mean,
I'm sure there's
I can't, but we're not allowed
heating-
to.
No, you're not allowed to. You will not.
You'll not be
We
that,
don't
like
own.
that guy that
We don't own the motorhome.
Yeah, and there's a big
Cleaning fee.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But Nick, you know,
I mean,
like
it's
that
not
guy,
like
there's
my-
only many flight attendants to wipe your butt after you're done.
Aren't good talking, big boy.
Are we still on the air?
Yes.
That's a shame.
Outtakes.
You know, Jeff doesn't edit any of this out of the
No.
YouTube video.
The YouTube,
No.
it's like as is. That's it.
What's and all?
Yeah.
And here I'm trying not to eat today, and my wife's making dinner. Now the house
I
makes
have
food.
tacos ready to eat.
Oh,
Not the dog.
Can't eat the
No,
dog.
not the dog.
No dog eating on this show.
Yeah.
Had enough
Taco
Korean
is-
No, that's another show over in Orient someplace.
Yeah.
Alive and well and asleep. on
Watch
a
it.
Comfy dog
Watch it.
bed.
Okay.
And there he shall stay.
Hey, folks, thank you so much for, we say this and you think that we're just, like saying that for whatever reason, but we really do mean it. Those of you who are in the live chat, we really do appreciate, because you are hardcore followers, fans, and we love you very much. And we're glad that you love us enough to show up every week and hang out with us. So thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I
Go Pats.
second
Full
that comment
chance.
by Jeff. Dana will only be saying this for the rest of the year.
It's over.
No, it isn't over.
For a while.
Yeah.
For a while.
Nah, it's a show after the big game, so I won't say anymore.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again next week
Indeed.
on the next episode. Bye.
Goodbye.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye bye.